Welcome to Moonlit Insomniac. Tonight, we'll step into a foggy railway station in 1902, a place where time moves slowly, footsteps echo softly, and the morning train drifts closer through the mist. As you listen, let the gentle details quiet your thoughts, ease your body, and guide you into rest. There's nothing to do, nowhere to be, only the soft rhythm of the station carrying you towards sleep. Now, let's begin. Chapter 1. Mist along the platform. The morning meets you like a dream you haven't quite woken from. You step onto the platform, and the world draws close and quiet, wrapped in a pale gauze of fog. It softens everything you see, the iron lamp posts wearing crowns of dim amber light, the slick wooden boards underfoot, the ribbon of steel that appears and disappears like a thought you almost recall. Even your own outline seems to blur at the edges, as if the mist is gently erasing the day before the day begins. You pause and breathe, and the air is cool enough to kiss your cheeks. The breath you release becomes a pale cloud that rises, bright for a heartbeat under the lamp, and then dissolves into the morning. Above you the sky is colorless, not quite silver, not quite white, a soft, untroubled space where sound doesn't travel far. Somewhere a gull calls once, stretched thin and distant, and the note folds into the fog like thread tucked neatly into cloth. You walk slowly. There is no other pace that makes sense here. The boards beneath your shoes carry a memory of night chill. They answer your step with the faintest softened tap, as if trying not to wake anyone. Moisture beads along the ironwork. Each droplet caught in the lamplight is its own small star, bright and patient. They tremble but do not fall. The benches along the wall gleam with a delicate sheen, varnish, wood grain, a thin skin of damp. Everything is smoothed, made gentle. On one bench, a scarf lies draped like a quiet thought, its wool heavy with mist, the ends curling slightly as if they had tried to warm themselves in the night and then forgot how. You could sit, but you don't. The bench will receive you when it wishes. For now it seems content to rest empty, as stations do in the earliest hours. Overhead, a clock ticks. The tick is soft, respectful. You don't look to see the time because time here doesn't matter. It slips easily, like water moving along a polished stone. The hands will move without you needing to know. You feel them in your chest instead. A slow, regular rhythm, your heart answering the clock and the clock answering back. Beyond the open doorway to the waiting hall, a warmer air lingers. Somewhere inside, a kettle must have sighed into a boil not long ago. A thin ribbon of tea scent wanders out to find you, something like malt and leaf and comfort. It curls around your senses and then thins again, replaced by a whisper of coal smoke that lingers from last night's fire, a memory more than a smell. You breathe both, and it's as though the station has prepared a gentle welcome. Warmth for the inside, cool for the skin, and quiet for the mind. Across the tracks, the opposite platform hovers, a darker streak in a world of white. Shapes move without faces, a hat becoming a person, becoming a hat again, a cart that appears as a shadow and slides away like ink brushed lightly by a wet thumb. You don't strain to see. The fog prefers not to be pressed. When it is ready, it reveals. When it prefers mystery, it keeps it. You let it be, and the letting is its own relief. Water drips somewhere in an offbeat rhythm. Perhaps a gutter holding on to the night. Perhaps the edge of a canopy where the mist has gathered into tiny pearls and now releases them one by one. Drip. Pause. Drip. The spaces between drips are as soothing as the sound itself, a reminder that silence is not empty but full of permission. A faint vibration seems to hum through the boards under your feet. It could be your imagination. It could be distance. It could be the rails speaking to you in their own metal dream, remembering a train from yesterday and anticipating another. The thought is not a thought you must hold. You let it pass. The way fog passes through a lamp's small circle of light and goes on being fog. A figure walks at the far end near the freight gate, coat buttoned, collar up, a sensible hat drawn low against the chill. The lantern he carries swings slightly, and the light moves across the wet boards in a quiet, liquid way, as if painting and unpainting the same golden path over and over. He does not hurry. Nobody here hurries. This is a place where even the morning knows how to wait. You notice your hands. Perhaps they have tucked themselves deeper into your pockets. Perhaps you rub thumb against fingertip, feeling the soft rasp of skin, alive and simple. You notice your shoulders, how they drop when you exhale. That exhale is longer than the inhale now, and it eases the rib cage and tells the spine it doesn't need to hold so much. The fog does some holding for you. The platform does too. You don't have to do it all. When you walk, your foot meets the board on a cushion of quiet. When you pause, the pause is not an interruption but part of the same slow sentence, a comma that asks for nothing. You look toward the rails. They disappear into the thickness of morning and then reappear a few steps later, as if the land were breathing them in and out. The metal's faint tang reaches your tongue, not unpleasant, just a reminder of earth and ore and age. You imagine the sound of wheels, not loud, just a deep, rounded rhythm, and the thought carries no urgency, only a promise somewhere down the line. You pass a luggage trolley and its stacked cases, leather darkened by damp brass buckles winking like sleepy eyes. A wicker hamper rests beside them, smelling faintly of old picnic afternoons even here in the pale chill. You touch nothing, but the nearness of these objects suggests other people's journeys, other mornings, other goodbyes and returns. The station remembers what you don't need to recall. It keeps the past folded neatly, and it has enough room for your quiet too. A small sound, almost a question, comes from near the benches. You turn your head softly. A cat, gray as chimney ash, steps out from underneath, each paw placed with a craftsman's care. Its whiskers test the air. Its tail writes a single slow line. It doesn't ask anything of you, only shares the space, then melts back into the underside of the bench as if the wood itself had opened a little door. Inside the waiting hall, a chair leg moves against stone with a whisper. Someone shifts, or perhaps only the air shifts. The scent of tea returns, more definite now, and the image of a chipped porcelain cup arrives in your mind with a curl of steam that disappears as soon as you notice it. The sensation of warmth in your hands arrives with it, and though your hands are still in your pockets, the imagined cup lends real comfort to your fingers. That's how the station works. It offers small kindnesses without insisting they came from anywhere particular. You glance toward the clock again without meaning to. It ticks, unflustered. The face is partly dimmed by the fog that has slunk inside, but the slow sweep of the second hand is clear enough. You realize you're breathing to its measure, in for 3, out for 4, maybe 5. The out-breath lengthens of its own accord. It knows what to do. From very far off, a bell sounds once, deep, round, unhurried. The note doesn't cut the air so much as settle onto it, like a coin dropped into a fountain, ripples spreading until the surface goes smooth again. You don't strain to hear another ring. One is enough to say what it needed to say. Somewhere, something is beginning to move. You walk to the edge of the platform and look down into the space where steel meets stone. A thin film of water has gathered on the rail's top surface. It holds the lamp's reflection without breaking it, mirroring a small moon of amber in a skinny river. When a breeze wanders by, the reflected light trembles, then steadies. You imagine laying your fingertip lightly on that line and feeling coolness, and the thought alone relaxes your hand. Behind you, the wall's brick face glistens, Small runnels of moisture collect and slide along mortar lines, mapping their own geography. Tiny valleys, V-shaped crossings, little deltas where the stone meets the platform. You could follow a single droplet's journey if you wanted and be content. It would take as long as it takes. Here, long and slow are generous words. The porter passes at a distance. You hear him more than see him. The soft creak of leather, the drag of a trolley wheel that needs oil but refuses to complain about it. A whistle keeps tucked behind his breath like a memory of a tune. You catch only a syllable of it. It's enough. Everything's enough here at the smallest dose. You stand again beneath a lamp. You notice the way its halo fades at the edges into a quiet gray, then into white, then into nothing. The world is layered like that now, light into fog, into air, into space. Each one a feather laid gently upon the other. Your thoughts follow the same arrangement. The heavy ones sink through a little, the light ones float, the necessary ones find a place to rest within arm's reach and stop asking for attention. Your mind doesn't need to hold anything tightly. The station holds it for you, the way a kind hand holds a bag while you tie your scarf. If you listen for footsteps, you hear them. If you listen for the absence of footsteps, you hear that too. If you listen for a story, you realize this morning is the story. It tells itself without plot or hurry, and your only task is to be the listener. Even task feels like too strong a word. You are simply here, and that is enough for the story to unwind gently, like a spool of thread releasing without tangle. Your shoulders drop another half-inch. The back of your neck warms under your collar, as your body remembers how to be comfortable in its own quiet. You notice how your jaw softens when you lengthen the out-breath. The fog approves. It thickens and thins in slow tides, following the rhythm you set without either of you trying. You look again toward the far end, where the station master's lantern draws small circles over the boards. He pauses and raises the lamp slightly, perhaps to read a note pinned near the freight door, perhaps to count crates that someone will collect when the world fully wakes. The flame inside the glass leans a touch, then stands again. It's a steady, companionable light, the kind that asks nothing, the kind that says, "I'll be right here when you need me." A newspaper sits folded on a bench as if placed there for you to find later. The headline you can see is about weather, rain in the west, fog in the valleys, a wind change by evening. The date could be yesterday's or 100 years ago. It doesn't matter. All weather becomes this weather. All mornings become this morning when the fog is this kind. You feel the truth of that settle inside you like a stone placed carefully in a pocket for its good weight. You stroll toward the station house door and stop just short of crossing the threshold. A warmer breath of air touches your face from within. Stove heat left over from the night, lingering like a genial host who won't rush you. From here, the hush of the waiting hall is a different kind of quiet. Wood and wall absorbing every scrape and whisper until only the softest sounds remain. A chair shifts again, or the building does. The rail timetable on the wall carries lines of print you do not need to read. It offers the idea of order without insisting you measure anything by it. You turn back to the platform in the open morning, and the fog greets you again with the same patient embrace. Your steps carry you past the luggage trolley to the end post, where the platform narrows to meet the line. The fog is thicker here. It beads on your lashes. It settles in your hair. When you blink, droplets move and the lamps blur a fraction more. It isn't unpleasant. It's in the way a soft wool blanket is pleasant, present enough to feel, light enough to ignore if you choose. From the rails, a new hum grows, so faint at first that you wonder if you imagine it. You don't try to decide. You only listen. The hum is low and even, like a note held on a cello far away, the bow moving so slowly that you doubt motion is happening at all. The boards respond with a little answering murmur. Your body answers too, a quiet readiness that is not anticipation, not impatience, merely a recognition that the world is on its way to you by degrees. You glance down to your shoes. A thin arch of moisture has gathered where leather meets sole. You imagine the warmth of your hands around a cup to meet that coolness halfway, and your palms tingle with borrowed heat. If you closed your eyes, you could feel ceramic under your fingers, the lip of the cup fitting the curve of your knuckle, the steam rising to fog your lashes, the way the morning has. You let your eyes half close. They agree to the idea. Somewhere behind your shoulder, the telegraph clacks a few brisk syllables and stops, wires whispering in code to a distant office where another early riser might be setting down a cup and straightening a sleeve. The sound is a whisper within a whisper. You do not translate it, you don't have to. The message for you is only that all through the white country of morning, small, purposeful things are happening without hurry, and none of them require you to do anything but breathe and be. You breathe and you are. A breeze rises and lowers like a tide across the platform, and a new scent threads the air. Oranges. You turn your head, and in your mind's eye you see a wicker basket at a vendor's cart, skins bright as little suns, paws catching the lamplight. The freshness of that scent slices gently through coal and tea and damp wood, not sharp exactly, just clean, just real. You imagine your thumb pressing lightly into the dimpled peel and the fragrance opening like a door to summer. The door can stay open or close of its own accord. Either way is rest. The bell sounds again, closer this time, one honest note with round edges. The hum on the rails agrees. The station seems to take a deeper breath with you, as if old brick and wet wood had lungs of their own. You realize you've begun to sway a little, the way people do when they're cradling a child to sleep, or when they've remembered a lullaby they haven't sung in years. The movement is so small, you might be the only one to notice it. It quiets the body the way the fog quiets the world, bringing everything within arm's length and saying, "There now." You let your gaze soften until the lamp halos blur into larger, gentler circles. The benches become strokes of dark, the rails two faint shining chords that vanish into a page of white. The morning removes its edges, and with them it removes yours. All the places where you once felt you had to hold yourself together are allowed to widen and blur and become part of a kind, seamless field. The hum deepens by a half shade. The bell does not need to ring again. You know, and the station knows, and the fog knows. Somewhere within the whiteness a shape will appear, a darker presence that is not threat but arrival, not noise but a wide, slow exhale coming toward you. Even that knowledge carries no urgency. It settles into you like the last line of a letter read by lamplight and folded back into an envelope. A good line, the kind that lets you sleep. For now there is only this: the platform breathing with you, the clock keeping time so you don't have to, the fog smoothing every edge and quieting every thought. You stand inside the gentlest hour of the day, and the hour holds you the way a soft coat holds warmth. You let your eyes soften a little more. You let your jaw relax. Your hands are easy. Your breath arrives and leaves without asking anything from you. The morning says, "Stay as long as you like," and you do. Chapter 2. Footsteps on cold stone. You step from the platform into the covered hallway that leads toward the waiting rooms, and the sound changes immediately. Out here in the open air, the fog softened every noise, pressing it into cotton. In here, under the shelter of the roof and between these stone walls, each step you take becomes a quiet note in a long, slow song. Your shoes meet the floor with a gentle tap, not loud, but definite. The stone beneath you is cool, holding the night's memory the way the wooden platform boards held the breath of the fog. There's a faint echo that follows each step, small enough that it fades before the next one arrives. It's an echo that makes you more aware of the space, of its shape and its age. The walls are built from large blocks of pale stone, their surfaces smoothed by decades of touch and weather. Between the blocks, the mortar has settled in shallow grooves. Here and there, a darker line shows where rainwater once made its way down, tracing a patient path over years and years. You run your fingertips lightly along one wall as you pass, feeling the cool texture, the gentle bumps and dips, the way some stones protrude just a little more than their neighbors. Overhead, the wooden beams are darkened from the smoke of lamps and fires long gone. They run the length of the hallway like steady ribs, giving the space its quiet, sturdy rhythm. You can imagine the sound of rain on this roof, a hollow, soft percussion that would settle deep into your chest. The hallway opens to your right into a small vestibule, where a heavy double door leads into the main waiting room. You pause at the threshold, looking through the glass panes. The windows are slightly fogged on the inside, the warmer air within pressing its breath against the cooler glass. The shapes beyond are soft and blurred, as if painted in watercolor. You stand there for a moment, letting your own breath slow. There's no urgency to move. This station doesn't ask you to hurry. It gives you time to arrive at each place in your own way. The fog outside seems to have taught it that lesson long ago. Somewhere behind you, out on the platform, you hear footsteps, not your own, but someone else's, walking at a pace as slow and unhurried as yours. The sound comes closer, then pauses, then continues again, the rhythm irregular but unpressured. You don't turn to look. The footsteps are simply another layer to the morning, another thread in the fabric of its quiet. You take a step inside the vestibule and the air changes again. It's warmer here, with a faint scent of old wood, wool coats, and the lingering ghost of coal smoke. The warmth isn't overwhelming. It's the kind that feels like it's been here for hours, steady and calm, rather than newly made. To your left, a tall iron umbrella stand sits against the wall, half filled with walking sticks and umbrellas. Their handles curve like question marks, each one belonging to someone who has passed through here before. Some are polished and smooth, others worn and faded. You imagine the hands that have rested on them. Hands tired from travel, hands eager for return, hands waiting for a train that might have been late or early or right on time. The stone floor here has a slightly different sound beneath your steps, a softer thud, as if it's absorbed the weight of all those who've walked this way before you. There's a subtle unevenness to it, dips worn into the surface where feet have passed most often. You find yourself walking in those shallow paths, your soles aligning unconsciously with the marks left by strangers long ago. At the far end of the vestibule, an open archway leads back out to another section of the platform. You catch a glimpse of the fog through it, a grey curtain beyond the frame of stone. But here, inside, the light is different. It falls in narrow beams from high windows, catching the faint swirl of dust motes drifting lazily in the still air. A low bench sits against one wall, its seat polished to a faint shine from years of use. The wood is warm in colour, though the grain is darkened at the edges where countless coats have brushed against it. A newspaper lies folded neatly on the seat, its front page headline printed in a serif typeface you recognize as belonging to another era. The ink is slightly faded, and you can see where the fold has softened the paper. You don't pick it up. You only notice the way it rests there, as if waiting for someone specific to claim it. The sound of footsteps returns, this time closer, entering the vestibule from the opposite side. They are slow, measured, almost meditative. You realize you've been matching your own breathing to their rhythm without meaning to. It feels natural, the way waves match the shore without trying. A faint draft moves through the space, carrying with it a trace of the fog's cool dampness. It brushes your cheeks lightly, then passes on, as if making its own slow journey from one door to the next. You follow it with your eyes, imagining it slipping between the spaces in the stone, weaving through the wooden beams, learning the contours of the station just as you are. Beyond the vestibule, you hear the muted clink of porcelain, the faint rattle of a spoon against the side of a cup. Somewhere, someone is pouring tea. The sound is small but carries clearly in this quiet, like a pebble dropped into a still pond. You picture the steam rising from the cup, curling into the air and mingling with the dust motes caught in the sunbeams. You walk slowly toward the waiting room door, and with each step, the air grows slightly warmer, the scent of tea slightly stronger. Your footsteps change again here. The floorboards inside the waiting room have a softer, more muted voice than the stone. It's as though they've been listening for decades, absorbing stories into their grain. The door swings inward with a gentle weight, the hinges moving silently. Inside the waiting room is a pool of muted golden light. The lamps on the walls are lit even now, their glass shades glowing softly. The walls are painted in a color that might once have been cream, but has mellowed over the years to something warmer, something touched by the sun and the smoke of countless fires. Along one side, a cast iron stove stands, its surface a deep, rich black. The faint warmth radiating from it suggests it's been quietly burning through the night. The smell of it is comforting, not sharp or heavy, but a reminder of shelter, of warmth that stays without asking for thanks. A man sits at a table near the stove, his coat draped over the back of the chair. In front of him, a cup of tea rests on a saucer, a curl of steam rising from it and drifting lazily toward the ceiling. He isn't reading, nor does he seem to be in conversation. He's simply sitting, hands wrapped around the cup, eyes half closed as if listening to something only he can hear. You take a seat on the bench along the opposite wall. The wood is smooth and slightly warm where the sunlight touches it. You set your hands on your lap, palms resting lightly on your thighs, and feel the steady weight of them there. Your breathing has slowed without your noticing. The footsteps that you heard earlier have stopped now, somewhere beyond the door. You imagine the figure standing on the platform again, lantern in hand, tracing circles of light over the damp boards, just as you saw before. For a long moment, you don't move. You let the space hold you. The stove's quiet ticking, the faint rustle of the man's coat as he shifts in his seat, the distant hum from the rails. They weave together into something steady and whole. Your eyes wander to the far wall, where a large clock hangs. Its face is clear and round, the black hands moving with unhurried certainty. You watch the second hand complete its circuit once, then twice, without thinking about the numbers. Each sweep feels like the slow turning of a page in a book you're in no hurry to finish. From outside, the fog presses softly against the windows, making the light within seem warmer. It's as if the world out there has stepped back a little, giving this small room the space to be exactly what it is, no more, no less. A sound reaches you then, not loud, but distinct. The station bell, its note deep and round, carries through the air. It doesn't startle you, it settles over you instead, like a hand resting gently on your shoulder. The man at the table lifts his cup and takes a slow sip. You notice the way his eyes close briefly, as if he's memorizing the taste. The stove gives another quiet tick, a tiny stretch in the metal. Somewhere in the distance, a door closes softly, the sound muted by the layers of space and fog between here and there. You find yourself thinking about the stones under your feet when you first stepped inside, the way they held the night's chill, the way they echoed just enough to remind you of their presence. The memory of that sound seems to linger in your ears even now, a low, soft rhythm beneath everything else. And then you realize you've been listening not just to the station, but to your own place within it. Your footsteps on stone, your breath in the quiet air, your eyes moving slowly from one point to the next. You've become part of the story this morning is telling, without even trying. You lean back slightly against the wall, feeling the solidity of it. The wood is smooth and worn, the stone behind it firm and grounding. You let your head rest for a moment, your gaze softening, your thoughts drifting. The fog will lift eventually. The train will come. The man will finish his tea, put on his coat, and step out onto the platform. But for now there is only this: the warmth of the stove, the steady presence of the clock, the memory of footsteps on cold stone echoing gently in your mind. And you are here, inside it all, without needing to be anywhere else. Chapter 3. The Far Platform. The quiet of the waiting room lingers in you like warmth held in cloth. When you finally stand, it's not because anything demands it, only because some small pull suggests the air outside might have shifted, that the morning might be ready to show you something new. You rise without hurry, letting your hands rest for a moment on the smooth bench, feeling the subtle heat it has taken from your body. The man near the stove still sits with his cup, eyes lowered, steam rising gently toward the lamp-lit ceiling. You meet his presence the way you might meet a stone on a path, simply noticing it, letting it belong to the landscape. The door to the platform opens without protest, the hinge sighing faintly. A breath of cooler air slips around you, carrying with it the scent of wet iron and the faintest edge of coal smoke. Not fresh, but memory thin, as if it came from some long-past departure still lingering in the grain of the wood. Outside, the fog has thickened in places and thinned in others. It hangs low over the far tracks, but here near the door the lamps make generous pockets of gold, where each droplet glitters before dissolving back into softness. You step onto the boards and feel the difference at once. Stone to wood, warmth to damp coolness. The boards give a little under your weight, answering with the smallest creak. You pause to listen. Somewhere down the platform, footsteps again. You have the sense they could be the same ones you've heard before. Slow, deliberate. Each step with the calm of someone who trusts there is nowhere to be late for. The sound grows faint, then disappears altogether, swallowed by fog and space. You begin to walk toward the far end, where the station roof no longer shelters the boards, and the air lies fully open to the morning. The fog there is thicker, more alive, as if it has been storing its stories for just this hour. Your pace is unforced. Each board accepts you, then releases you, the rhythm steady and sure. A luggage cart stands near one post, half covered by a tarpaulin that is beaded with moisture. The canvas smells faintly of oil and rain. One corner has been turned back, revealing the smooth curve of a wooden trunk with brass corners. The brass is dulled now, but when the lamp catches it just so, you can see a faint ghost of its old shine. You imagine the trunk's journeys, the way it might have been set down on other platforms, under other skies, its sides absorbing the sounds of other languages, its locks holding the quiet weight of someone's private world. Further along, a bench sits in the open, its slats damp, its arms curved as if to invite weary elbows. On the seat, drops of water tremble, merging slowly into larger beads before spilling between the slats. You brush one arm of the bench lightly with your fingers. The wood feels cool and alive under the skin, as if it too were breathing the morning in. You glance toward the rails. Here at the far end they run straight and clean into the fog. The steel surface is wet, turning the thin line of metal into a river of pale light. You watch how the reflections bend and break as the fog thickens, then open again into clarity. It's as if the land is breathing, the rails moving in and out of view with each long inhalation. Somewhere in that white distance, a low hum begins again. You can't say if it's nearer or farther than before, only that it exists, steady and unhurried. You close your eyes for a moment and feel it in your body, a faint vibration in your ribs, an answering quiet in your spine. The hum is not a signal to act, but a reminder that the world has its own time, and you are allowed to move within it without rushing. A gull's cry reaches you then, a single note stretched and softened by the fog. It comes from the direction of the goods yard, where the smell of damp rope and oiled timber drifts faintly on the air. The sound fades into the distance, leaving behind a stillness that feels even deeper for its passing. You step nearer to the edge of the platform and look down where the gravel meets the base of the rails. Small weeds push up between the stones, their leaves beaded with water. One leaf tilts under the weight of a drop, releasing it to fall soundlessly to the ground. That small motion, that perfect surrender, holds you for a moment longer than you expect. The hum along the rails continues. The bell has not rung again. Somewhere in the station, a door closes with a soft thud. The sound doesn't travel far in the fog, but it finds you, weaving itself into the morning's fabric. A faint movement catches your eye. A cat, perhaps the same ash-grey one you glimpsed before, emerges from beneath the bench. It pauses to look at you, its eyes reflecting a shard of lamplight, then moves on without haste. Its tail flicks once, like the punctuation at the end of a quiet sentence. You watch until the fog swallows it, and then you let your gaze soften again to the shape of the rails, the blur of the horizon. The boards under your feet are darker here with damp. You feel the chill of it through the soles of your shoes. Not unpleasant, just a deeper connection to the morning's cool breath. You walk until the platform narrows to a single post with a lantern bracketed to it. The lantern is unlit now, its glass clouded with a fine mist. You lift your eyes to the fog beyond, knowing you won't see far, but willing to stand here anyway, letting the air touch your face, your hair, your thoughts. When you finally turn back toward the station, the walk feels different. You are moving with the morning now rather than through it. The boards welcome each step without hurry. The hum fades as you move, replaced by the gentler rhythm of your own breath and the occasional drip of water from the eaves. Halfway back, you pass the covered cart again. A single drop falls from the canvas corner to the trunk below, landing with a sound so small you almost don't hear it. But you do, and the hearing makes the moment whole. As you near the waiting room door, the warmer air greets you again. Inside, the man has finished his tea and is buttoning his coat. He glances toward the clock, then toward the platform. His movements are unhurried, as if he too understands that here, even the approach of a train is no reason to rush. You stand for a moment at the doorway, caught between the warmth within and the soft, damp breath of the world outside. Both are enough. Both are yours to keep. And so you linger, letting the station hold you, as the morning writes another quiet page in its unending story. Chapter 4, The Station Master's Office. You leave the edge of the platform behind and step once more into the covered hall, letting the weight of the air change around you. The light here feels older, somehow, more filtered, as though it has traveled a long way to reach these walls. The boards beneath your feet dry slightly as you move in, their sound shifting from the muffled creak of damp wood to something warmer, a softer timbre that echoes just enough to remind you you're inside. Ahead, a narrow side corridor veers away from the main hall. You've passed it before without thinking, but now the pull is different. Small, quiet, but definite. The kind of pull that comes from curiosity rather than urgency. You turn into it, the air narrowing with you. The corridor is barely wide enough for two people to pass without brushing shoulders. The walls here are paneled halfway up with dark stained wood, the grain rising and falling in gentle swirls. Above the panels, the plaster is painted the pale color of cream, left to sit in the sun, warm but dulled by time. You notice faint marks where framed notices once hung, rectangles of lighter paint still visible against the years. Halfway along the corridor, a door stands slightly ajar. A brass plate on it, dulled with age, reads Station Master. The letters are engraved deep, their edges softened by decades of polish. You pause with your fingertips resting lightly on the door's edge, feeling the coolness of the metal beneath the varnish. The hinge moves without complaint as you push gently. The door opens into a small square room lit by a single tall window that looks out onto the side platform. The fog presses against the glass here, muting the shapes beyond into something like a dream remembered. Inside, the air is warmer than you expect, touched by the faint smell of pipe tobacco and beeswax polish. Against the far wall stands a desk, solid, broad, and worn to a rich sheen where countless elbows have rested, countless letters have been signed. Its surface holds only a few objects. An inkwell with its lid half open, a pen resting beside it, a small stack of paper weighted by a brass compass whose lid is closed. The chair behind the desk is empty. Its leather seat is cracked in places, but the shape of it speaks of long hours spent in the same position, leaning forward, reading timetables, making notes, looking up at the sound of the bell. On the desk's left corner, a clock ticks steadily. This one is smaller than the one in the waiting room, but its voice is clearer in the quiet, each second marked like a bead on a string. You find yourself listening to it until your breath unconsciously matches its rhythm. To your right, a tall cabinet with glass-fronted doors stands against the wall. Inside are rows of ledgers, their spines lined neatly in faded red and black. Some have handwritten labels, dates, station names, codes you don't recognize. A faint layer of dust rests along the upper shelves, catching the light in pale gold. You step closer to the window. The sill is wide and deep enough to sit on, the paint worn smooth where hands have rested to lean and look outside. You set your palm there now, feeling the faint chill from the glass seep into your skin. Beyond the window, the fog is so thick that the world appears in layers, a faint outline of the platform roof, the suggestion of a post, the glimmer of a rail before it vanishes into whiteness. Somewhere in that whiteness, you imagine the slow movement of a train, not rushing in, not yet visible, but simply existing, making its way toward this place at its own pace. You picture the station master here on mornings like this, standing at this very spot, reading the air as much as the timetable, knowing by some inner measure how far away the arrival still is. Your eyes move back to the desk. The pen is worn at the grip, the nib stained dark. You imagine it dipping into the inkwell, scratching across paper in a measured, looping hand. Names, numbers, perhaps a note about the weather, about the visibility, about a particular passenger's arrival or departure. The room feels full of those notes still, as though the air has kept them folded inside it. Pages you could almost read if you stayed long enough. A sound reaches you from the corridor, the faintest scuff of a sole against wood. You glance toward the door, but no one appears. The sound fades, replaced by the steady tick of the desk clock. For a moment you stand still, letting the quiet collect around you. There is something about this room that feels set apart, not in a closed way, but in a way that holds its own time, its own patience. You take a final look out of the window before stepping back toward the corridor. The fog outside is unchanged, yet you feel as though it has deepened, not in density, but in meaning, as if it knows you've been watching. You close the door gently behind you, the latch clicking with a softness that belongs to a place long accustomed to careful hands. Chapter 5. The Goods Yard. When you step back into the main corridor, the air feels broader, more open, as though it has stretched itself to meet you. The waiting room still glows at one end, the vestibule at the other, but now your eyes turn to the door, half hidden near the side, one you hadn't noticed before. The wood is heavier, darker, its surface marked by scuffs where boots have pressed against it over years of passing. A small window, set high in the frame, shows only grey fog beyond. You place your hand against the handle, its iron cool and faintly rough beneath your palm. The door gives way with the quiet weight of something used often, but not hurriedly, swinging outward to reveal a narrower passage lined with brick. The smell of damp stone greets you, carrying with it the faint tang of coal and wet rope. At the far end, another door waits. This one is already open, the fog pushing gently inside as though curious about what lies beyond. You follow it, stepping out into the goods yard. The yard is vast but muted by the morning. The fog gathers here differently than on the platform, settling low among the rails and rising around the stacks of crates until each shape looks softened, blurred at the edges. The ground underfoot is gravel, its crunch softened by dampness, each step making only the faintest sound. A row of wagons stands along a siding, their wooden sides darkened by moisture. Some are covered by tarpaulins, others left open to the sky, where rain has left shallow pools along the planks. Iron wheels, half veiled by fog, glisten faintly with droplets that slide down their rims in slow arcs. Closer to you, a pile of timber rests neatly stacked, its ends cut square and pale. The scent of resin lingers faintly in the air, sharpened by damp. You run your hand lightly over one log as you pass, the surface cool and rough, tiny beads of water gathering against your skin. The hum you felt on the platform seems to echo here too, not in the rails this time, but in the very air, a vibration that rests low and steady. You breathe it in, letting it fill the space between your ribs, the weight of the morning pressing not down, but gently around. At one corner of the yard, a small shed leans against the wall. Its door hangs half open, revealing coils of rope, stacks of burlap sacks, and the faint metallic scent of oil. A lantern sits on a shelf just inside, its glass fogged with soot from long use. You imagine it lit at night, swinging from a hand as someone checked the wagons, its glow marking a small circle of certainty in the vast dark. A sound drifts through the fog, the soft scrape of wood against stone, the faint clatter of something being shifted. You pause, listening. The sound doesn't repeat, but the silence that follows seems richer for it, like a page that still holds the memory of words after they've been read. You walk further into the yard, past a line of crates stacked nearly as high as your shoulders. The stenciled letters on their sides are faded, their paint softened by years of handling. Some bear the names of distant towns, others only numbers. You trace a finger lightly along one, the paint rough beneath your touch, then let your hand fall back to your side. Somewhere above, a gull cries again. Longer this time, its voice dipping and rising before fading into the fog. The sound reminds you of the unseen river beyond the station, its wide, slow-moving waters carrying their own stories past this place, day after day, year after year. Near the far wall, a set of iron tracks disappears into a warehouse. The wide doors there are shut now, but a small gap at the bottom lets out a faint draft of cooler air. You can almost hear the echo that would rise inside if those doors were opened, the hollow breath of a cavernous space waiting for the shuffle of feet, the roll of wheels, the clatter of wood against stone. You pause beside the wall and lean your shoulder lightly against the brick. The surface is damp, its roughness pressing through your coat. You close your eyes for a moment and let the fog move around you. Here in the yard, time seems to stretch even more than on the platform, each second elongating until it becomes something you can rest inside. When you open your eyes again, the shapes before you are no clearer, but they feel more familiar. The wagons, the stacks of crates, the faint outlines of posts and beams. All of them belong here not as objects to be used, but as parts of a larger rhythm. They wait, they rest, they hold their silence as carefully as they once held weight. A cat appears again, perhaps the same grey one, perhaps another. It moves along the base of the stacked timber, its back brushing against the boards, leaving a faint darker line where the moisture shifts. It pauses to look at you once more, eyes catching a glimmer of light, then turns away, slipping between two crates with a quiet grace. You let the sight of it linger in your mind as you slowly begin to walk back. Each step carries the scent of the yard with you. Damp stone, oiled wood, the ghost of coal smoke. The fog seems to part only enough to show you the way, closing gently behind you as if to keep the yard folded in its own quiet. The corridor greets you again, its brick walls closer now after the breadth of the yard. You follow it back to the station, your hand brushing lightly against the panelled wood as you return. When you step once more into the vestibule, the air feels warmer, gentler. The waiting room lamp glows at the far end, steady and patient. Somewhere beyond, the bell waits for its next toll. And you realize that each part of this place, the platform, the waiting room, the office, the yard, holds its own silence, its own way of teaching you to listen. You stand for a moment longer, letting that lesson settle in your chest, before turning slowly toward whatever the morning wishes to show you next. Chapter 6. Letters in the Pocket. The platform draws you back again, as if the fog itself has extended a quiet hand. You step into its pale embrace, the boards sighing beneath your weight, and notice at once that the air has shifted. It isn't warmer nor colder, but different, like a room that has recently been entered, its stillness subtly changed. You place your own hands deeper into your coat pockets, and your fingertips find the edges of paper there. Letters, folded, creased, softened by time. You had almost forgotten them, though in truth they have been with you all along, sitting close against your body, waiting. You pause beneath a lamp, the glass globe overhead glowing faintly gold through the mist. The fog swirls around you in slow currents, parting and rejoining like thoughts drifting at the edge of sleep. You pull one letter halfway from your pocket. The envelope is rough under your fingers, its paper thick, its edges worn. You do not open it, but hold it lightly, feeling the weight of it. Not heavy, yet more than nothing. It is strange how letters carry a weight beyond their paper. The weight of moments once lived, thoughts once set down, hands once steady or trembling as they wrote. The fog seems to lean closer, as if curious to see what you hold. You slip the letter back, letting your fingers rest against the others. Each has its own texture, one with edges slightly curled, another with ink that has bled faintly into the fibers, another crisp and unopened. You do not need to know their words. The knowing that they exist is enough. A bench stands near the wall, its damp wood gleaming faintly in the lamplight. You sit for a while, the boards beneath you cool through your coat, and let your hands rest over the pocket where the letters lie. Your breath moves in slow rhythm, rising and falling with the fog's own tides. Somewhere far down the platform, a lantern swings. Its circle of light moves back and forth, like a pendulum marking time in its own way. You hear the faint echo of boots on wood, then silence, then the sound again. Each interval stretches like a sentence unfinished, waiting for its end. You think of the letters again. Perhaps they too are unfinished sentences, threads waiting to be picked up, stories still alive in their waiting. Some belong to yesterday, some to years ago, some to futures that never came. All of them live here, pressed close against your side, closer even than breath. You lean back against the bench, closing your eyes. The fog presses gently against your eyelids, filling the darkness behind them with soft white. In that inner space, the letters unfold without being opened. You do not see words, but you feel them, waves of thought that wash lightly across your chest. They are not insistent, they are not urgent. They are simply there, reminding you that presence can be stored in paper, just as fog stores light, just as stone stores echoes. The platform is very quiet now. Even the drip from the eaves has paused, or perhaps it continues in such a rhythm that you no longer need to hear it. The letters in your pocket shift slightly with your breathing. Paper against fabric, fabric against skin. That simple touch holds you steady, like a pulse beneath your fingertips. When you open your eyes again, the fog has thickened further down the line. The lamps nearest you glow brighter for it, their halos large and soft, their light resting on the damp boards in circles without edges. You rise slowly, your steps carrying you toward the far end. As you walk, you imagine placing the letters one by one along the platform, one on the bench, one on the trunk beside the cart, one beneath the lamppost, one balanced on the rail, each letter resting where the fog can touch it, where the morning can hold it, where the station itself can keep it safe. But you do not place them, you keep them close. For the letters are not only memories of other voices, they are your own as well. They remind you that you are part of the fabric of this place, stitched into it as surely as the fog, the lamp, the rail. A gull cries once, then silence. The hum along the rails deepens, only for a moment, then subsides again. The air smells faintly of iron, damp wood, and something else. Perhaps the faintest trace of ink, as though the letters themselves have breathed into the morning. You stop beside the lantern post at the far edge of the platform, the glass misted over, the iron damp beneath your hand. You rest there, one palm on the cold metal, the other over the pocket of letters. Your breath slows further. The letters are not heavy, but they steady you, giving the fog shape, giving the silence a pulse. The morning says nothing, yet you feel as though it has spoken. You close your eyes once more, and the words inside the letters shift like soft tides, sentences dissolving into fog, names carried on invisible currents, dates that no longer matter. The feeling remains, and it is enough. When you open your eyes again, the world is the same and not the same. The fog drifts as before. The lamps glow as before. The rails vanish into distance as before. And yet something inside you has softened, as if you too have been folded into an envelope and placed gently into the pocket of the morning. You turn back at last, walking slowly along the boards. Each step is a reminder that you carry both silence and story, both weight and lightness, both letters and the spaces between them. When you reach the waiting room door, you pause, but do not enter. You linger on the threshold, letting the fog curl around you one last time. The letters are safe. The morning holds them with you, and you continue, as the station continues, unhurried, unending, part of the quiet story still being written in the air. Chapter 7, The Waiting Room Clock. You return once more to the waiting room. The door yields gently, its iron handle cool beneath your hand, and the air that greets you inside is warmer, thicker, as though it has been waiting for you specifically. The glow of the lamps is subdued but steady, golden halos pressed gently into the painted walls. The stove hums faintly, not with sound so much as with presence. The kind of presence that reassures, reminding you that warmth is not always loud. The first thing your eyes are drawn to is the clock. It hangs above the doorway, round-faced and pale, with black hands moving in a rhythm too calm to be called motion. It does not tick loudly, only the faintest click marks each second. Yet that faint sound fills the room as if it were the very heartbeat of the station itself. You stand beneath it for a moment, listening. Tick, pause, tick, pause. Each one arrives at exactly the right time, no earlier, no later, and yet without the smallest trace of insistence. The clock is never impatient. It has never rushed, not once in all the years it has hung here. Your breath adjusts unconsciously, meeting the clock halfway. In, out, in, out. The pauses between its ticks become pauses in your own chest. You feel the difference immediately. The way your shoulders loosen, the way your ribs soften, the way your thoughts begin to stretch out like cats in the sun. You lower yourself onto the bench beneath the clock. The wood is smooth and faintly warm. its surface worn by years of waiting passengers. You can almost hear them still, their quiet conversations and gentle sighs pressed into the grain, lingering now as whispers of memory. The clock looks down over it all, patient, unblinking. On the table nearest the stove, the man with the tea has gone. His chair sits empty, the porcelain cup resting upside down on the saucer as if in conclusion. The absence does not feel like loss. It feels like continuation, as though he has simply become part of the silence, folded into it as seamlessly as the fog outside folds into the lamps. You lean back against the wall and tilt your head upward, watching the clock's second hand sweep. It is not quite smooth, but not jagged either, a motion that belongs to machines built with care, machines that know their duty and carry it out without complaint. You imagine the gears behind the face turning in small, precise circles, each one supporting the next, a hidden harmony. Your thoughts drift with those gears. You begin to imagine time differently, not as something that pulls you forward, not as something that escapes you, but as something that moves in circles, steady and certain, always returning, always continuing. The sound of the clock assures you of this. Tick, pause, tick. The fog presses faintly against the windows, muting the light outside so the clock glows even more clearly against the wall. You notice details you hadn't before. A small nick in the brass rim, the way the numbers curve slightly outward as though bowing to the face. Even the glass covering it is faintly rippled, catching the lamplight in uneven patterns. Each imperfection makes the clock feel more alive. Not mechanical, but human. A companion more than an instrument. You close your eyes. The ticking continues. You realize that you can still see the clock even in the darkness behind your eyelids. Its face has imprinted itself there, glowing faintly in the space between thought and dream. The second hand moves slowly in that inner vision, and you follow it without effort. Somewhere beyond, in another part of the station, a door closes. The sound is faint, but carries clearly, and the clock answers with its own click, as though weaving the sound into its rhythm. You realize then that every sound belongs here, the footsteps, the bell, the hum along the rails. All of them find their place in the clock's patient song. You open your eyes again. The second hand is still moving, as though it has never stopped. Perhaps it never has. Perhaps it never will. You let your gaze wander to the stove. A small tick rises from it too, metal shifting as the fire within breathes. For a moment, stove and clock seem to answer one another. Two different kinds of time. One mechanical, one elemental, speaking the same language. The bench beneath you creaks faintly as you shift your weight. That sound too becomes part of the rhythm, a softer note layered into the measure. You exhale, long and slow, and realize that your own body has joined the orchestra. Breath, heartbeat, the faint whisper of fabric against wood. The clock keeps everything together, not by force, but by presence. You glance again at its face. The minute hand has moved since you first entered. Not far, only a little. And yet the change is undeniable. You realize you've been here longer than you thought, though it has not felt like waiting. It has felt like being carried. You reach into your pocket, fingers brushing the folded letters once more. The paper crackles faintly, a sound that feels fragile compared to the solidity of the clock. And yet the two belong together, the letters holding the past, the clock holding the present, both keeping time in their own way. A faint sound drifts from outside, perhaps the porter again, perhaps the bellows of the goods yard stove, perhaps only the fog shifting against the roof beams. The clock accepts it all, absorbs it into its circle, ticks again. You let your eyes soften, watching until the numbers blur. The hands become lines of shadow, the face a pale moon against the wall. In that soft blur, The clock looks less like an object and more like a sky, round, eternal, endless. Your breath slows even more, in, outside. The hands move with you, the pause between each tick stretching wide enough to hold your whole body, wide enough to cradle you. The waiting room has grown quieter still. You hear nothing now but the stove, the faint sigh of fog against the window, and the clock's heartbeat. And you realize something. The clock is not only marking time, it is giving it back to you. Each tick is not a loss, but a gift. Another moment to rest, another moment to breathe, another moment to simply be. You close your eyes again. The clock is still there, steady, certain, moving whether you notice or not. And you feel safe knowing that even if you drift into sleep, even if you let go completely, the clock will keep time for you. You lean your head back, let your body sink into the bench and allow yourself to be carried by the rhythm. Tick, pause, tick. And the morning continues, patient, unhurried, eternal. Chapter 8. The Return of the Bell. The warmth of the waiting room stays with you as you step once more onto the platform. It clings faintly to your skin, a memory of fire and lamplight that softens the coolness of the air outside. The fog receives you gently, its damp breath brushing against your cheeks. For a moment you stand still, feeling yourself balanced between two worlds, the warmth within, the cool expanse without. Both are steady. Both are enough. The boards beneath your shoes are darker here, soaked through by the morning's quiet condensation. They flex slightly with each step, carrying the memory of countless other feet that have passed this way. Each creak is soft, like the murmur of an old friend who has no need to speak loudly to be heard. You walk slowly along the platform. The lamps above throw halos of muted gold into the fog, circles of light that float just long enough to mark your way before fading into the gray. You pass the cart again, its canvas heavy with moisture, and the same brass corners of the trunk beneath glimmer faintly. Each detail is exactly as before, and yet not the same. You see it differently now, as though each object has waited for you to look at it again, to know it in a new way. From somewhere deep in the fog, the hum returns. At first it is faint, a low murmur beneath everything else, but then it grows clearer, more certain. It moves not toward you and not away, but simply around, filling the rails, filling the air, filling even your chest with its gentle vibration. You pause to listen, letting it expand in you. And then softly the bell rings. Its note is low, round, and whole. It does not rush. It does not demand. It rolls outward in every direction, pressing gently through the fog until even the lamps seem to glow more warmly in response. The sound settles into you. It is not simply heard with the ears but felt in the bones. Your shoulders loosen further, your hands, resting at your sides, unclench without you noticing. The bell's voice seems to reach places words cannot, the hollows behind the heart, the quiet corners of thought where silence usually rests alone. It rings again. This time you feel it in your spine, a slow wave moving downward, connecting you to the boards, the rails, the stones beneath. Each tone seems to map you onto the station itself, drawing invisible lines between body and place, between breath and fog, between the world outside and the small room within. You close your eyes. Behind your lids, the bell's vibration lingers, humming in a space larger than your body. You sense its roundness, the way the note holds itself without breaking, the way it carries not just sound but something older, a memory perhaps, or a promise. You cannot tell. You only know that it is whole, and in its wholeness you feel yourself whole as well. When the third strike comes, it is softer, almost reluctant, as though the bell itself has decided to leave room for silence to follow. And silence does follow, not as absence, but as presence. A silence that carries the bell's roundness still, its shape still vibrating in the fog. You breathe into that silence, deep and slow. The platform is still. The lamps glow. The rails hum faintly beneath the fog. And within it all, the bell's resonance continues, even after the sound has gone. You begin to walk again. Each step seems to fall in rhythm with the bell's echo, though you cannot say whether you are following it or it is following you. Perhaps both. The boards creak softly underfoot, weaving your movement into the morning's fabric. At the far end of the platform where the lantern post stands, the fog is thickest. You walk toward it, unhurried, letting the light dissolve and reappear as you draw closer. The lantern is still unlit, its glass beaded with moisture, but the fog itself glows faintly around it, as though remembering the flame that once lived there. You stand before it. You place your hand lightly on the post. The wood is damp, cool beneath your palm, but steady. For a moment, you let yourself imagine the lantern lit, the glass clearing, the flame alive, its warmth pressing against the fog. The image is so clear that you almost see it flicker. Another sound reaches you then. Not the bell this time, but footsteps. Slow, deliberate, measured. The same rhythm as before. You do not look for the source, you only listen. They move across the board somewhere behind you, then fade into the fog again. Each step belongs. Each step is enough. The silence that follows is deeper, steadier. You let it settle around you. Let it fold itself into your breathing. When you turn back, the waiting room glows softly through the mist. The lamps inside blur into warm pools of light. The clock's round face faintly visible. The stove's glow imagined more than seen. You walk toward it, carried by the rhythm that has now embedded itself into you. Bell, breath, boards, silence. At the doorway you pause. The warmth greets you again. The air inside is thicker, more fragrant, carrying with it the faintest trace of tea leaves and iron stove. You step in and the door closes behind you with the gentlest sigh. The waiting room feels smaller now, not in size, but in intimacy. You notice details you hadn't before. The faint scratch of a name carved into the corner of the bench. The way the lampshades have gathered dust at their rims. The hairline crack in the stove's enamel, where the heat has worked its way through years of service. Each detail holds a history, quiet but enduring. The clock ticks above you, steady, unfaltering. You glance up and see the minute hand has shifted again. Not by much, but enough to remind you that time has been moving all along, carrying you gently within it. You sit once more on the bench. The wood accepts your weight, remembers your shape. You rest your palms on your thighs, feeling the warmth of your own body beneath them. Your breathing is calm, your heart steady. The bell's echo still lingers somewhere deep in your chest. For a long time you sit like this, listening, breathing, watching the second hand sweep, the stove hum, the lamplight glow. And you realize that nothing has changed, and yet everything has. The fog outside is still thick, the platform still quiet, the rails still waiting. And yet, because of the bell, because of the silence that followed, the waiting room feels more alive, more complete. You lean your head back against the wall, close your eyes, and let the morning continue its unhurried story. The bell may ring again, the train may come, the fog may lift. But for now there is only this: the steady clock, the faint warmth of the stove, the quiet presence of your breath. And that is enough. Chapter 9. The quiet weight of waiting. The morning has gathered itself into a stillness so complete that even the fog seems to pause. It hangs thick and soft beyond the glass, muffling the world into a hush. Inside the waiting room, the stove ticks faintly, a sound so subtle it almost disappears into the silence. The air is warmer here, touched by fire and by breath, but it carries no urgency. Everything rests in its own rhythm, unhurried. You remain on the bench for a while longer, your body adjusting to the quiet weight of waiting. There is no demand, no task, no call for action, only this room, this moment, this slow unfolding of time. The wood beneath you remembers other passengers, other mornings, yet it also holds you fully, as if you were the first and only person to ever sit here. Your gaze drifts once again to the clock on the far wall. Its face is clear and simple, the black hands moving with calm certainty. The second hand sweeps forward, steady and unfaltering, each motion both small and infinite. Watching it, you feel the strange paradox of time. It moves, yet it does not hurry. It passes, yet it is always here. The man who had been sitting near the stove has now risen. He pulls on his coat with deliberate slowness, each button fastened with care. He does not rush. When he lifts his cup, now empty, he sets it back on the saucer as if closing a chapter. For a moment, his eyes meet yours, not in greeting, not in farewell, but in acknowledgement, the way one might notice a tree standing beside a path. Then, without a word, he moves toward the door. The hinges sigh softly as he steps onto the platform. The fog swallows him almost at once, and you are left with the quiet room again, its warmth wrapping around you like a shawl. Yet his presence lingers, a faint trace woven into the morning, as though he has left part of his breath behind with the steam of his tea. You sit a moment longer, then rise. The boards beneath your feet creak gently in response, and your hand brushes against the smooth back of the bench as you pass. You pause at the door, feeling the subtle shift in air where warmth gives way to cool, where lamplight surrenders to fog. And then you step through. The platform receives you as it did before. Damp boards, muted light, the soft press of mist. The sound of your own footsteps returns, slow and steady, echoing faintly in the stillness. Somewhere in the distance, a gull cries once. The notes stretch thin by the fog until it dissolves entirely. You walk toward the far end again, where the station roof falls away and the sky opens to the morning. The fog here is denser, thick as wool, swallowing the rails until they vanish into whiteness. The lamps struggle to push their light through, their halos small and golden against the grey. The world feels suspended, caught in the pause between breaths. And then the bell rings. Its note is low, deep, steady. It rolls outward, pressing through fog and air alike, folding itself into the boards beneath your feet and the rails that stretch beyond. The sound does not disturb you. It settles you, the way a steady hand might rest on your shoulder. The bell rings again. This time you hear it not only with your ears but with your whole body. The sound threads through your ribs, down your spine, into the soles of your feet. Each tone is a reminder of presence, of weight, of belonging. The station itself seems to breathe with the sound. When silence follows, it is not emptiness, but fullness. The air hums with what has just passed, each droplet of fog vibrating faintly with memory. You draw in a slow breath, and the silence enters with it, expanding inside you until your chest feels both hollow and whole. You step nearer to the edge of the platform. The rails are slick with moisture, their thin lines glowing faintly in the lantern light. You follow them with your eyes as far as the fog allows, watching them disappear into whiteness. There is something comforting in that vanishing, the way the world can soften its edges, blur its limits, allow mystery to stand without needing explanation. A movement catches your eye. From beneath the cart, the ash-grey cat emerges once more. Its fur is damp, its tail flicking lightly as it crosses the boards. It pauses to look at you, eyes reflecting a shard of light, then moves on, slipping silently into the fog. You watch it disappear, the sound of its small paws barely reaching your ears. For a while you simply stand there. The platform stretches out before you, the lamps glowing, the fog drifting. Each breath you take feels unhurried, woven into the morning's slow rhythm. You realize that waiting is not emptiness, but a form of fullness, a chance to notice, to breathe, to belong. When you finally turn back toward the waiting room, the glow of its lamps calls to you softly. You walk slowly, each board giving beneath your steps, each creak a quiet affirmation. The fog presses at your back, the warmth beckons ahead, and you find yourself balanced once again between the two. Inside, the stove glows faintly, its warmth greeting you like an old friend. The bench waits, smooth and steady. The clock ticks, marking time not as a demand but as a gentle unfolding. You sit once more, and the room receives you without question, without condition. The bell may ring again, the train may arrive, but for now, there is only this. The slow breath of the station, the warmth of the fire, the fog pressing softly against the glass. And you are here, within it, whole, present, enough. Chapter 10. The Lantern's Glow. The waiting room feels smaller now, as though the fog outside has pressed closer, softening the edges of the windows and folding the world into itself. You sit in the same place as before, your body leaning slightly against the warm wood of the bench, and let your gaze wander over the familiar scene. The stove's gentle radiance, the muted lamps, the clock's steady hands. Everything is the same, and yet it feels subtly altered, as if the morning has shifted while you were still. The silence here has weight, but it is not heavy. It settles around you like a blanket, weaving together the hum of the stove, the faint ticking of the clock, the almost inaudible sigh of the old wood adjusting in the warmth. You breathe with it, your chest rising and falling in rhythm with the room itself, until the boundary between you and the space begins to blur. Then you hear it, the soft scrape of a hinge, the muted sound of the door opening once again. A draft of cooler air drifts across the room, carrying with it the familiar scent of wet stone and faint coal smoke. You do not turn immediately, but when you do, you see a figure step inside. The lantern in his hand glows faintly, its glass misted by the damp air outside. The light is warm, golden, a small sun carried carefully into the heart of the station. The man holds it steady, though not tightly, as if the lantern has walked beside him for years and knows its own way. His coat glistens faintly with fog, and drops fall quietly from its hem, darkening the wood beneath his feet. He does not hurry. He places the lantern gently on the table near the stove, and for a moment its glow mingles with the fire's warmth, one golden circle joining another. The man brushes a hand over his hair, shaking off a few lingering droplets, then lowers himself slowly into the chair. No words are exchanged, none are needed. His presence is like the fog itself, not announcing, not demanding, but simply arriving. The lantern's glow adds to the room as naturally as breath adds to a body. You find yourself watching the lantern. Its glass is old, faintly warped, so the flame within flickers with a softened edge, its light bending into tender shapes. Dust motes, invisible before, become tiny constellations dancing through the golden air. You follow their slow paths upward until they vanish into the dim ceiling. Time passes gently. Perhaps minutes, perhaps more. The clock continues its steady march, each second hands sweep another brushstroke across the morning. The man sits with his lantern, not moving much, sometimes lowering his gaze to the table, sometimes lifting it to the stove, sometimes letting it rest on nothing at all. His stillness is a kind of language, and the room listens. Eventually, you rise. The boards beneath your feet give their familiar soft creak, and you step toward the door once more. The fog outside pulls at you, not insistently, but with the quiet certainty of a tide returning to the shore. The man does not stop you. His eyes lift briefly as you pass, the smallest acknowledgement, like a nod exchanged between travelers at a crossroads. Then he returns to his stillness, lantern beside him, flame steady. You open the door, and the cool breath of the morning greets you. Stepping outside, you find the fog as dense as ever, the lamps along the platform casting halos of light that dissolve into grey. But something has changed. The glow of the lantern has followed you. Even out here, its memory clings, shaping the way you see the mist. Every droplet seems touched with a faint gold, as if the air itself remembers flame. You walk slowly down the platform. The boards are damp and dark, each one bowing slightly under your weight. You listen for the footsteps again, the slow, steady rhythm you have heard so often. But they do not come. Instead, there is only your own quiet tread, your own presence folding into the fog. At the far end, where the platform narrows and the lantern post stands unlit, you pause. The fog is thick here, nearly impenetrable. You lift your eyes to it and feel no need to pierce the veil. It is enough to stand at its edge, to breathe it, to let it brush against your skin and seep into your hair. The hum along the rails stirs again, deep and steady, vibrating through the wood beneath your feet. It is not loud, but it is certain. You close your eyes, and the sound travels into you, ribs, spine, legs, down into the soles of your feet. It reminds you of the bell, of the steady note that pressed through the fog earlier, a sound that was less a call and more a blessing. Somewhere beyond the fog, a gull cries. The note bends, stretches, then vanishes into silence. The morning folds around the absence softer, deeper. You lower yourself onto the bench near the cart, damp though it is, and let your hands rest in your lap. The fog curls around you, the hum threads beneath you, and the lantern's glow still lingers in your mind, as if its flame were now burning behind your eyes. Time drifts. Perhaps minutes, perhaps more. The station does not measure it for you. It only offers space. You sit with it, breathing, listening, belonging. When you finally stand again, your body feels heavier and lighter all at once, heavier with stillness, lighter with release. You walk back toward the waiting room, each step familiar, each board greeting you. The door opens easily and the warmth embraces you again. The man is still there. The lantern still burns, and the morning, in its quiet unfolding, continues to hold you. Chapter 11. The window by the stove. The lantern's glow lingers long after you have settled again. Its light folds itself into the other sources in the room. The stove's slow warmth, the muted lamps, the quiet shimmer that seeps through the fog-softened windows. Each is distinct, and yet together they weave a fabric of calm that feels as though it could stretch on forever. The man at the table shifts slightly in his chair, the wooden leg sighing against the floor. His coat, still damp at the hem, carries the faint sheen of fog, and where it brushes the back of the chair it leaves a darker impression. The lantern flame flutters once and steadies again, as if in answer. You find your gaze drawn to the window nearest the stove. The glass is old, not perfectly smooth, and the fog beyond has pressed itself into its surface so that the view appears like a painting, blurred, softened, every outline smudged into dreamlike suggestion. Drops of moisture have gathered on the outside, slipping slowly down in wandering paths. Each one catches a trace of lamplight before disappearing into the sill below. You rise without hurry, the wood beneath your soles sounding a quiet acknowledgement. Moving closer to the window, you rest one hand lightly on the sill. The paint has worn to softness, layered by years of touch and time, until it feels almost like fabric beneath your skin. From here the fog appears endless. The lamps outside are reduced to pale circles. halos of light hovering without anchors. The rails are invisible, though you know they lie just beyond, steady in their course whether seen or not. You watch the fog for a long while, waiting for some shift, but it holds its silence. It is not empty, though. It is full in its own way, carrying a density that feels alive, a presence more than a backdrop. The stove ticks again, a small sound, metal expanding against itself. You imagine the coals within, glowing, holding their quiet red light, unseen but steady. The warmth radiates into your back as you stand by the window, and for a moment it feels as though you are suspended between two worlds. The fire behind you, the fog before you, each with its own language, each complete. You close your eyes. The hum of the rails seems to reach you even here, faint but certain, a vibration that does not demand attention, yet makes itself known. The sound and the warmth together create a balance, as though the world were reminding you that both directions, outward into the fog, inward into the flame, are part of the same whole. When you open your eyes again, the glass has misted slightly from your breath. You draw a slow line across it with your finger, revealing a thin clarity through which the fog seems somehow deeper. The act feels like writing, though the message is only momentary. Within seconds, the glass softens again, and the mark disappears into haze. Behind you, the man lifts his lantern from the table. He does not stand, not yet, but his hand curves around the handle as though remembering something. The flame inside leans briefly toward the glass, brightening for a heartbeat before settling once more. You return to your place on the bench, lowering yourself gently, and fold your hands together in your lap. The clock on the far wall marks its slow rhythm. You watch its hands sweep, not for the time itself, but for the certainty of motion. The assurance that even in stillness, something continues. The man finally rises. His chair pushes back with a muted scrape, and he sets the lantern carefully on the edge of the stove. The flame seems almost to sigh with the change, settling into its new place beside the older, deeper heat. The man buttons his coat one notch higher, smooths the fabric with a thoughtful hand, then moves toward the door. You watch him without expectation. He opens the door to the platform, and the fog greets him with the same quiet welcome it gave you. For a moment his figure is visible, outlined against the glow of the room. Then, step by step, he becomes part of the fog, absorbed without resistance, leaving only the faint impression of movement that soon fades into nothing. The lantern remains. Its flame glows against the black curve of the stove, a companion to the fire within. You find yourself studying it again, the way it bends light through the glass, the way the brass handle catches a faint reflection. It is not merely a tool for illumination. It feels like a keeper of memory, a witness to every passage through this place. You lean back against the bench and let your eyes close. The warmth, the ticking clock, the steady breath of the fog beyond the window, all of it gathers around you, unhurried, whole. In that gathering, you feel yourself settle into the story, not as a visitor, but as someone the station has been quietly expecting all along. Time drifts, soft and unmeasured. Perhaps the bell will sound again. Perhaps another figure will arrive, lantern in hand, or coat trailing the damp of the morning. Perhaps not. It does not matter. What matters is this: the stove's warmth against your side, the lantern's glow at the corner of your vision, the slow sweep of the clock's hands turning pages in a book you do not need to finish. And so you remain, part of the stillness, part of the unfolding, part of the quiet that belongs to the station, as surely as the fog belongs to the morning. Chapter 12. The Rhythm of the Bell. The waiting room has settled into its own silence. You sit, the stove at your side, the lantern beside it, the fog outside pressing softly at the glass. Nothing asks you to move. Nothing urges you to act. And so, for a time, you simply remain, the moments stretching out like fabric unrolled along the floor. When the bell sounds, it does not break that fabric. It joins it. The tone is deep, round, and resonant, a note that fills the air without force. It carries through the room, through the fog, through the rails and the boards until it seems to exist in every surface at once. You close your eyes as it fades. The after-sound lingers, not in your ears but in your chest, a subtle vibration that feels older than the building, older even than the rails that stretch into the unseen. You breathe with it, letting each inhale match its weight, each exhale soften its echo. The bell strikes again. The second note carries differently, not louder, not softer, but layered with the first, as though the space remembers and repeats what it has just heard. You wonder how many mornings have carried this rhythm, how many travelers have listened as you do now, waiting not for instruction but for presence. Your gaze moves to the window. The fog stirs faintly, a shifting of depth rather than distance. One lamp glimmers brighter for a moment before fading back into its muted halo. The rails remain invisible, yet the bell reminds you they are there, stretching outward, carrying their certainty beneath the fog's cover. You rise slowly and walk once more to the window. The wood beneath your hand is familiar now, worn smooth by earlier touch. You stand close enough to see your own faint reflection, softened by the uneven glass. Behind you, the lantern's flame bends a little, its glow brushing your outline into the misty surface. You are both inside and outside, both presence and memory. The bell tolls a third time. This time you do not simply hear it, you see the room shift with it. The dust motes caught in a slant of light tremble faintly. The flame in the lantern leans. The stove gives another tick, as though answering in its own slow tongue. Every sound, every movement folds itself into that single rhythm. You find yourself breathing differently now. Inhale, pause, exhale. Each cycle feels like a turning of the bell itself, a circle drawn and completed. It slows you further, softening the edges of your thoughts until they dissolve like the fog against glass. A chair creaks in the corner, though no one sits there. Perhaps it is the wood shifting. Perhaps it is the weight of time reminding you that this place is not empty even when it appears so. You let the sound join the rhythm, a quiet layer beneath the deeper tone. You turn your head toward the stove. The lantern still rests on its edge, its flame untroubled. The iron is warm, a steady presence that has endured long nights and countless mornings. For a moment you imagine the bell not as a command to depart, but as a greeting, an acknowledgement of the fire's persistence, of the lantern's steady glow, of your own quiet presence in the room. The bell strikes once more, and then no more. The silence that follows is not absence, but fullness, as though the air has gathered itself around those four notes and holds them gently, unwilling to let them scatter. You return to the bench, lowering yourself again into the wood's familiar curve. Your hands rest loosely on your lap. You close your eyes, and the memory of the bell continues to hum within you, a rhythm without urgency, a call without destination. Somewhere in the fog, a door opens and closes. Footsteps sound faintly, not hurried, not delayed, just part of the ongoing story. You wonder if the man with the lantern has returned, or if another traveler has arrived, drawn by the same rhythm that drew you here. The clock ticks steadily. Its hands move without rush, without pause, marking the quiet passage of time that needs no marking. You listen, not for the hour, but for the sound itself, the small, certain reminder that even in stillness, something continues. You lean your head back against the wall, feeling the strength of the stone behind the wood. Your gaze softens, your breath slows further, and the bell's echo remains, not in the air now, but in you. And so you sit, a traveller not of distance but of presence, held in the rhythm of a station morning that asks nothing more than that you be here, exactly as you are. Chapter 13. Bootblack's Corner. You reach here. The air feels a fraction cooler, but not unfriendly. The light thins along the panelled walls, gathering in gentle pools beneath the sconces. You move through it without hurry, making the kind of sound that belongs to old buildings, soft-souled, respectful, until you turn a final corner and find the small alcove that locals call Bootblack's Corner. It is not much more than a widened bend in the corridor, a shallow bay framed by stone and wood. Yet the space holds itself like a tiny shop inside the station. A wooden stand, a low seat, two brushes resting like sleeping birds upon a folded cloth, and a squat tin of polish with its lid placed upside down beside it, gathering a faint ring of dark shine. A short, well-kept box supports a footrest with a smooth brass plate where heels have found purchase for years. Everything in this nook is simple, serviceable, tended. You sense the craft before you hear it. Then the sound arrives, a steady whisper of bristles over leather. Shh, shh, shh. A soft rhythm, neither hurried nor slow, a tide moving across a small shore. The bootblack sits on the low stool, sleeves rolled a turn, waistcoat buttoned, posture easy. His hair is neat, his face clean-shaven, his expression untroubled. He looks not so much at the boots before him as through them, past their scuffs and creases and dried rings of old weather, toward the quiet shine beneath. The client is a porter by the cut of the trousers. He rests a hand on the handle of an empty trolley, letting the other hand dangle, a figure at ease in a moment borrowed from duty. No one speaks. The brush does the talking. Shh, shh, shh. You find yourself standing just to the side where the corridor widens, within reach of the alcove's calm. The smell reaches you next, beeswax and oil, a breath of turpentine smoothed by years of mingling with leather. It is not sharp. It is mellow, familiar, like a cupboard opened in a memory. Each inhale carries the scent lightly into your chest. Each exhale returns it to the room, unchanged. On a small shelf at the bootblack's knee, a square of cotton waits, edges frayed, middle darkened to a permanent sheen. The brushwork slows and settles. The cloth takes its turn. Circular strokes now, a small sun drawn and redrawn upon the toe of a boot. The porter shifts his weight, not impatiently, only to balance the trolley's silent wheel. The corridor accepts the movement and returns to stillness. A coin tray rests near the polished tin, a shallow ceramic saucer with a hairline crack the color of tea. Two coins lie there already, turned to one another as if in conversation. Their dull glint is the only metallic bravado in the little theatre. Everything else has earned its modesty by service. You think how easily this nook could be a chapel if prayer were a craft. The bootblack finishes the first boot and gestures with a fingertip. The porter lifts his heel, settles the second boot on the brass plate. The cloth waits. The brush begins its tide again. Shh, shh, shh. The sound folds into the station's deeper rhythm. The far clocks click, the muted tick of iron cooling somewhere behind a wall, the distant steady breath of the fog pressing its soft weight against the main doors. You lean your shoulder lightly to the paneling and let your gaze soften. The bristles move in long sweeps along the boot's flank, then shorter flicks near the welt, then a careful attention to the seam where leather meets leather, that fine line where journeys always leave their first trace. The boot accepts the work without protest. It simply becomes more itself. The porter looks down once, and the two men share a glance like the tip of a hat, a courtesy tidy enough to fold into a pocket. Then the bootblack changes tools again, trading brush for cloth. Small circles, breath through the nose, a pause to warm the polish with the heel of the hand, then circles once more. The air brightens by a degree. as if the alcove has lifted its face to a higher light. You notice how the shine arrives. It does not flash, it grows. From matte to murmur, from murmur to glow, from glow to a still lake surface, a place where a lamp might think itself a moon. You see that lamp now, in miniature, caught on the curve of the toe. An amber bead, a private dawn. The boot holds it delicately, then returns it to the room each time the cloth passes. The reflection is not bragging. It is simply proof that care has been taken. You feel your own shoulders release a small portion of their hold. The sound of the cloth circles seems to coax the corners of your breathing wider, in and out. Not equal, not measured, natural. You count nothing. The station counts for you. A suitcase sits near the boot stand, upright on its small brass feet. Its leather is a darker shade than the porter's boots, almost plum where age has gathered. A baggage label clings to its handle by a softened string, edges curled, letters smudged. The place name is illegible. The paper carries a geography no one needs to read. The bootblack would polish this too if asked. The thought comes and goes like a small, friendly bird. The second boot reaches its shine, and the porter steps down. He flexes both feet once without looking at them, as though the new smoothness has softened not only the leather but the morning. He nods, places another coin in the cracked saucer, a round, quiet thank you, and rolls the trolley on. Its restrained rattle a single sentence in a book that will keep reading itself, whether anyone is there to turn the page or not. Silence returns to the nook, the good kind that needs no rebuilding because nothing has been broken. The bootblack wipes his hands on the folded cloth, closes the polished tin with a precise turn of the wrist, and sets the brushes side by side, their bristles like two fields laid smooth by wind. You do not realize you have moved until you find yourself nearer the seat, where the brass footplate waits like a small invitation. You glance toward your shoes, nothing to remark upon, not dull, not bright, carrying the honest record of boards and corridors and the goods yard's damp gravel. The bootblack meets your eye and offers the smallest tilt of his head, a question that contains its own answer, only if you wish. You sit. The low stool creaks pleasantly. Your back finds the wall's cool steadiness. Your foot settles onto the brass. Its temperature is neither warm nor cold. It is simple metal being what metal is, a truth you can rest part of your weight upon. The bootblack chooses the softer brush first and begins. Shh, shh, shh. The rhythm reestablishes itself, and you feel it travel up through the leather, through the bones of your foot, through the long muscles of the calf where an unneeded effort loosens by a fraction. The brush pauses and changes angle, addressing the seam near the laces. You focus on a single breath while he attends to that corner the way a gardener clears a path between stones. Another breath, and the brush slides to the flank, longer strokes now, the tide turning and returning as if the ocean had decided to learn a boot. There is a small pleasure in letting someone else care for a thing that carries you. You do not think it or say it, the body recognizes it for you. The bootblack's concentration is not intense. It is quiet, attentive. He works as if each circle of the cloth and each sweep of the bristles were helping the morning recall itself. The scent of polish tilts toward honey for a second when he warms a dab between his hands. Then the circles begin. Small ones first, along the toe where scuffs have gathered like whispers. Then wider ones that cover more of the leather until the whole surface hums beneath the cloth. The shine arrives again the way dawn arrives through fog, never suddenly, never not at all. You lower your gaze and see a lantern's reflection forming. Not the one from Bootblack's corner, but the memory of the waiting room lantern. The amber bead reappearing on your shoe as if the room you left has decided to travel with you. The sight softens something behind your sternum. You breathe in, and the polish breathes with you. The bootblack does not rush the second shoe. There is no advantage to speed in a room that carries the world at walking pace. He brushes the welt and the heel as carefully as he worked the toe, then spends a long, untroubled moment on the instep, where the leather arches and every step begins. He finishes with the same cloth, the same circles, the same patience. When he is done, the pair sits in their soft glow, like two small lakes taking the sky's opinion. You lift each foot and then set them both down on the worn rug, feeling the way the sole meets the weave. It is the same floor it was. It meets you more kindly because your body meets it more kindly. You rest your palms on your thighs, and the station adds the weight of your hands to its collection of ordinary things it knows how to hold. The coin in your pocket answers the saucer in a language older than fares. You do not count its value. Coin and saucer understand their own arithmetic. The bootblack nods and sets the coin down quietly beside the others, as though laying a small stone on a cairn that marks a path no one needs a map to follow. A small draught passes along the corridor and cools the side of your neck for the length of a breath. It carries the fog's dampness and the faint, clean note of the outside air. Somewhere far off, a bell sounds once, round-edged and kind. The brush and cloth are still. They no longer need to answer. The bell is content with its own echo. Bootblack's corner changes its light by an inch. Perhaps a cloud shifted, perhaps a lamp blinked in thought. On the shelf, a small glass bottle stands with a cork stopper, a cut-down thing, squared like a little city. Inside, the last inch of oil holds a sun it borrowed from long ago. Next to it, a folded scrap of newspaper keeps an old date. The day and month are clear. The year has smudged into suggestion. Time does that here. It files the numbers under already understood. A woman pauses at the mouth of the alcove, glances at the stand, then at the hallway toward the platform, then back at the stand again. Her boots are sturdy, with a dullness that looks like rain and roads and being done with fuss. She half steps in, then chooses otherwise, a decision made without regret. Some mornings want work, some mornings want rest. The corner holds both, whenever required. You remain a little while longer, doing nothing that would need a name. The bootblack tidies his tools. The cloth is folded along its familiar lines, the brushes tapped once to loosen any sleep they gathered, the Polish tin turned so the label faces forward, as though it liked to be seen. The stand carries the imprint of the day in its brass plate. A thumbprint of shine smudges into the light and becomes part of it. A faint sound reaches from the station's front doors, hinges taking a deep, slow breath. Voices arrive as ripples, then flatten to a hush before they can become words. You find that you do not need words. The station uses them sparingly, like salt. When you stand, your legs accept your weight without negotiation. The body knows the exact measure of care it has just received and adjusts its agreements with the ground accordingly. You thank the bootblack with the smallest incline of your head, the currency the room trades in most, and he returns the bow in the same denomination. Two acknowledgements pass like boats along a quiet canal and moor themselves somewhere behind the heart. You turn toward the main corridor again. As you step away, you notice the shine on your toes collect a sliver of the corridor lamp and carry it forward. The light does not grow weaker for being borrowed. It only learns a new path to travel. You bear it back through the turn, along the panelled wall, past the framed timetables, and the varnish darkened by hands that reached here in seasons you can almost remember. The gleam walks with you. When you re-enter the wider hall, the station's other sounds resume their quiet talk. A chair shifts its modest weight. The clock smooths another second. The stove, 3 rooms back, ticks once with the contentment of a cat changing dreams. You come to the threshold of the waiting room and pause in the doorway. The fog is still at the windows, pressing its gentle palm to the glass, letting the light within look warmer in comparison. The lantern sits where you last saw it by the stove, holding its small, steady sun. You step inside, and the bench offers you your place again without asking for explanation. When you sit, the new gloss on your shoes glints in the corner of your eye and then behaves itself. The room accepts the detail and makes no ceremony of it. Your ankles cross loosely, your hands find your lap. The breath you draw goes all the way down and returns without carrying anything it doesn't need to. You glance up at the clock, not to take its measure, but to allow it to take yours. Yes, breathing. Yes, seated. Yes, present. The second hand moves. A thought touches the edge of your mind and dissolves before it spells itself. Another thought arrives and does the same. The bell does not ring, and in not ringing, it still keeps the station faithful to what it is. You consider briefly the hundreds of boots that have passed through Bootblack's corner. Officer's high polish, farmer's blunt toe, a child's Sunday leather, a widow's practical lace, a traveller's soft city shine. All of them carried a morning with them. All of them left with that morning slightly amended, edges smoother, surfaces reconciled, steps made more willing to meet the day. The thought rests in you without weight. Your gaze lowers to the floorboards. The grain runs in long, quiet lines. The color deepened where countless shoes have moved this way before. Shine and scuff and shadow lie together like neighbors at peace. The boards keep their record and offer no opinion. They let your newly polished souls join the archive without formality. A single drop of water ticks from the window frame and finds the sill. Then another finds the same small pool and becomes it. The sound is smaller than small, and yet the room notices. You notice, and then you stop needing to notice. The ripple settles back into the quiet, the way a pebble returns to stillness at the bottom of a clear brown stream. You rest the back of your head against the cool wood. The lantern and stove mingle their lights at the edge of your vision until you can't tell which belongs to which. Your eyelids grow heavier, not from effort, but from the relief of having none to make. Somewhere between bench and breath, you feel the morning standing very close and very kind. Bootblack's corner remains behind the turn in the corridor, keeping its small altar of polish and cloth, its tide of bristles ready for the next pair of boots that wishes to remember itself. The quiet there is part of the quiet here. The shine there is part of the glow here. They are the same house, different rooms. You let that understanding drift. You let the air do the carrying. The station is good at this work. Your hands grow warmer where they rest. The polished leather at the end of your legs reflects a sliver of lantern once more, then lets it go. Your mouth softens at the corners, the way all careful tasks soften a face after they are finished. No one sees it. The station does, and that is enough. Minutes pass without names. The clock's small voice becomes a cradle song with only one word in it. Continue. You do. And the morning, grateful to be met exactly as it is, continues with you. Chapter 14. The Telegraph Office. You rise once more, not because anything requires it, but because the station seems to suggest a quiet unfolding. One corridor leading to another, one room asking to be seen. Your feet move of their own accord, carrying you through the waiting room's soft air, past the stove's lingering warmth, and into a narrower hallway lined with painted panels that have absorbed more than a century of footsteps. The corridor bends, then opens into a small chamber with a sign above its door, Telegraph Office. The letters are carved into oak, their paint darkened, their edges softened by the oils of countless fingertips. You pause at the threshold before stepping inside, as though entering a library where silence is part of the architecture. The room is not large. Its walls hold shelves stacked with paper, folded forms, slim ledgers, envelopes bound in twine. A counter stretches across one side, its surface worn smooth by elbows and coins and waiting hands. Behind it sits the telegraph instrument itself. A squat brass key mounted on polished wood, wires trailing from its side like roots searching for earth. A spool of paper tape feeds through a small machine, its teeth leaving a line of tiny perforations. Each hole is a syllable in a language spoken across distance. The air carries a faint tang of metal warmed by touch, ink dried on nibs, and dust that has settled without hurry. A single lamp, green-shaded, spills a cone of light over the counter. It catches the curl of paper tape, making the holes sparkle briefly as they pass, like stars arranging themselves into constellations. At first, the room is still. Then, without warning, the telegraph key clicks. A sharp, small sound, neat as a raindrop on glass. Another follows, then a pause, then a longer note drawn from silence. Click, click, clack. The rhythm builds into a pattern, a voice without throat or tongue. You lean closer, though you do not know the code. Yet some part of you feels the cadence rather than reads it. Short, long, pause, repeat. A steady beating, a message carried across unseen wires to arrive here, to arrive now. You cannot translate the words, but you sense the shape of their meaning. Someone, somewhere, is speaking. Someone else here is listening. A clerk sits at the desk, his sleeves rolled back, his collar undone. His fingers rest lightly near the key, not pressing, only waiting. His head tilts slightly as he follows the rhythm with his ear. The sound seems to pass through him rather than into him. His pencil waits above the pad of paper, and when a phrase ends, he moves, recording it in swift, precise lines. The strokes are neat but not rigid, letters marching in rows that do not stumble. You watch his hand as it works, the pencil's lead whispering against the page. You realize that every word he writes is a journey's end, a message that has crossed fields and rivers and towns unseen, carried by current alone, now comes to rest in his looping script. The thought carries with it a hush so complete that you forget to breathe until the next click pulls air back into your chest. The sound fills the room without ever growing loud. Click, clack, click. You close your eyes for a moment and the rhythm becomes a pulse, a low drum played with fingertips. You feel it in your ribs, in your spine, as though your body is one more receiver in this chain of transmission. On a nearby shelf, a stack of sealed envelopes waits for delivery. Their corners are softened, their paper thick, their ink darkened to the color of old plums. Each carries an address written by hands that pressed meaning into curves of letters. Some are tidy, some hurried, some slanted with emotion. You imagine their journeys, a farm wife waiting for news of her son, a merchant confirming a shipment, a friend saying, "Yes, I remember you." Each envelope is a vessel, carrying words across fog and field and distance. The clerk finishes a line, rips the sheet neatly, folds it twice and slips it into a fresh envelope. He does not look at the paper as he seals it with a practiced press of his thumb. His attention is already half turned back to the key, to the voice that might begin again at any moment. And then it does. The clicks come faster this time, sharper, as though urgency has tightened their spacing. His pencil keeps pace, hand steady, expression unchanged. You watch the notes form into letters, the letters into words, the words into sentences. You do not need to know their meaning to feel their weight. Each strike of the key is a thought hurled across distance, an intention stitched into sound. The lamp glows brighter in your vision, though it has not changed. The brass of the key gleams faintly, the wood dark with years of touch. The sound gathers into you until you are no longer separate from it. You are the listener, the recorder, the wire, the current. The message moves through you as surely as it moves through the clerk. At last, the key falls silent. The room exhales, the lamp steady in its glow, the clerk's pencil resting in his hand. He lays the finished sheet aside, presses his palm once to the wood as if grounding himself, then leans back in his chair. For a moment the office holds no sound but the faint ticking of the wall clock, keeping its own rhythm beside the one that has just ended. You feel your body soften into the quiet. The message has crossed whatever space it needed to cross, and in its completion, the air seems lighter. You are left with the hush of having been present for something both ordinary and infinite. The clerk notices you then, though not with surprise. His glance is brief, kind, acknowledging your presence as part of the room's story. He nods once, then turns back to his desk, where the stack of envelopes waits patiently for the next train, the next hand, the next journey. You let your gaze wander to the walls again. The shelves stand with their ranks of paper, each sheet blank, each waiting. They remind you of snow before footsteps, or a lake before wind. The potential hums quietly, needing no display. A draft stirs the lamp's green shade, shifting its circle of light. For a moment, the paper tape glitters again as it curls, its perforations a constellation too vast for any one mind to chart. You think of how many messages have passed through this little room, each one no more than a flick of brass, a mark of pencil, yet each carrying weight enough to change a day, a life, a heart. You step back slowly as though leaving a chapel. The corridor accepts you once again, the office folding behind you like a page gently closed. The faint hum of the station returns, a chair leg, a cough, a door settling on its hinge. As you walk toward the main hall, you carry the rhythm with you, not the words, not their content, but the pulse itself, a reminder that even across distance, across fog, across silence, connection finds its way. The message arrives, the listener receives. The space between is bridged. You breathe, and the breath feels like one more message, answered. And the station, timeless in its patience, receives you as part of its ongoing transmission. Chapter 15. The Station Master's Office. The corridor bends again, guiding you as gently as a stream bends a leaf. Your hand trails along the painted wainscot, its surface cool and faintly ridged beneath your fingertips. The hallway narrows, then opens on a heavy door with a brass plate affixed at eye level. The engraving is simple, its letters firm and slightly dulled with age. Station Master. You pause before the door. Even the air here feels different. Not stricter, not heavier, but more contained, as if it has been trained to hold a certain order. You push gently and the latch yields without sound, the door swinging inward on hinges that have been oiled and tended for decades. The room you step into is square and orderly, but it carries a warmth that surprises you. A wide desk dominates the center, its oak top worn to a satin glow. Ledgers lie stacked neatly along one edge, their spines cracked from use, their titles inked in looping handwriting: arrivals, departures, freight, accounts. The air smells faintly of leather bindings, lamp oil, and the quiet sharpness of ink. On the far wall hangs a large timetable, printed on cream-colored paper and framed in wood. Its rows of destinations and times stretch downward in precise columns, though some of the towns listed no longer exist, their names belonging now to history rather than geography. You let your eyes trace the schedule, seeing in its rhythm the same pulse you felt in the telegraph clicks, a translation of life into lines and measures, an attempt to set movement to a clock's authority. The station master himself sits at the desk, though he does not look up immediately. He is a man of indeterminate age, his hair silver at the temples, but his back straight, his hands steady as he moves a pen across the page. His coat is neatly brushed, his waistcoat buttoned, his spectacles perched low on his nose. He writes with deliberate grace, every letter exact, every flourish restrained, but sure. When he does glance up, his eyes are not sharp but steady, holding you in the way the rails hold a train, with firmness but without pressure. He inclines his head as though to say, "Yes, you belong here as well." Then his gaze returns to the page, his pen continuing its journey. The lamp on his desk glows golden, its glass chimney faintly fogged with soot. The flame inside burns small but unwavering, casting light across the wood grain in long, quiet streaks. A paperweight of cut glass rests atop a sheaf of papers, the light breaking into fractured rainbows inside it. The colors shift as you move, small sparks of spectrum dancing against the steady brown of the desk. You step farther into the room and notice the clock on the wall, larger even than the one in the waiting room. Its pendulum swings with patient dignity, its tick softer than you would expect for its size. Each movement seems less like time passing and more like time pausing, time breathing. You find yourself slowing, letting your own breath fall into its rhythm. The station master sets his pen aside and reaches for one of the ledgers. He opens it carefully, his fingers lingering on the worn leather as though it were an old friend. The pages are filled with neat rows of names, numbers, and notes. Some of the entries are recent, their ink still dark. Others have faded to sepia, their edges softened by decades of air. You realize that this book is not merely a record of trains. It is a memory of people, of journeys, of moments when lives intersected with this place. A farmer bringing crates of apples in autumn, a soldier leaving with a wave and a promise, a bride stepping down from a carriage, her veil trailing behind her. Each entry is brief, almost cryptic, but you can feel the weight of the stories beneath them. The station master runs a finger down one column, then nods slightly, satisfied. He closes the book and sets it aside with reverence, as though tucking away a completed chapter. His eyes lift to the window behind the desk. The glass there is clouded with condensation from the fog outside. Beads of water slide down in slow paths, blurring the view beyond into shifting shapes of gray and gold. He watches them for a moment, his face calm, his posture at ease. And then he speaks. His voice is low, steady, not raised for command, but carrying the quiet authority of someone who has long since stopped needing to shout. "This station," he says, almost as though to himself, "does not hurry. The trains come, the trains go, but the walls remain and the air remembers." He falls silent again, and the room absorbs his words as though it has been waiting to hear them spoken aloud. You move to a chair near the desk, its seat polished and its arms smooth with years of use. You sit, feeling the wood cradle you, and you let your gaze roam the office. The details reveal themselves slowly. A map pinned to one wall, its paper slightly brittle at the edges, lines of rail marked in red ink, stretching like veins across the land. A small box of sand on the windowsill, meant for dousing cigarette embers. A coat stand, with a single umbrella hooked upon it, its handle worn to a soft sheen. The station master adjusts his spectacles and looks at you again. "Every journey begins with a waiting," he says quietly, "and every waiting is its own journey." You do not answer, but you feel the truth of it settle over you like the fog outside. Not heavy, not smothering, but undeniable. For a long while, the two of you simply share the space. The ticking clock, the faint scratching of his pen, the muffled sounds of the station beyond the door. They weave together into a fabric both delicate and unbreakable. You are aware of the passage of time only because the lamp's flame wavers now and then, as if reminding you that even the most patient light consumes itself slowly. At last, the station master closes the ledger he has been working in. He places his pen carefully beside it, aligns the paperweight with the desk's edge, and folds his hands. He looks at you not as though asking a question, but as though acknowledging one that has already been asked. Then he nods once and says simply, "Go on. The station has more to show you." You rise, the chair legs whispering against the wooden floor. As you move to the door, you glance back once more. The station master has already returned to his writing, his head bent over the page, his pen moving in sure, measured strokes. The office door closes softly behind you, and you find yourself once again in the corridor. The air feels changed, though nothing visible has shifted. It is as though the order of the station master's room has passed into you, leaving you steadier, quieter, more rooted in the rhythm of the place. You walk slowly back toward the main hall. The clock in the waiting room ticks in time with the larger one in the office, their rhythms now familiar, as if you carry both within you. Outside, the fog presses gently against the windows, its pale presence patient, unhurried. Somewhere a bell sounds again, low and deep, and you feel no urgency at all. The bell does not call you away, it calls you deeper in. And so you go, letting the station unfold its story page by page, room by room, breath by breath. Chapter 16, The Attic. The corridor seems to lengthen as you walk, its lamps softening to a golden haze that stretches upward into shadow. You notice, almost by accident, a narrow flight of stairs tucked into the corner where two walls meet. They rise steeply, the boards worn to a curve in the center by countless feet that must have passed here long ago. No sign marks them. They wait in quiet anonymity, as though belonging to another layer of the station that only a few remember. You pause at the foot of the stairs, your hand resting on the smooth banister. The wood carries the faint coolness of stone, though warmer where countless palms have once passed over it. Dust lingers here too, a fine powder that gathers in the corners, softening the edges of the steps. You feel no compulsion to hurry. The stairs are patient, waiting for you as they must have waited for decades. With a slow inhale, you begin to climb. Each step creaks faintly, not complaining, but announcing your presence. A reminder that the structure has a memory of every passage, every ascent, every weight it has carried upward. The air grows cooler the higher you go, edged with a dry stillness that is different from the damp breath of the fog outside. At the top, the stairs end at a low door with a black iron latch. You press it gently and the door opens inward, releasing a sigh of air that smells of wood, old paper, and the faint sweetness of time itself. The attic is larger than you expected, stretching beneath the slope of the roof. Wooden beams cross overhead, their surfaces dark with age, some carved with faint initials left by hands long forgotten. Dust hangs in the air like a soft veil, stirred by your entry, catching the dim light that filters through a small circular window at the far end. The window is misted, the glass uneven, its surface wavering with tiny bubbles that distort the fog outside into a blurred, dreamlike glow. All around, the space is filled with trunks, crates, and parcels wrapped in brown paper and tied with twine. Some are stacked neatly, others lean at odd angles as though placed in haste and then abandoned. A bicycle frame, its tires long since gone flat, rests against one wall. A stack of hat boxes tilts precariously nearby, their paper coverings faded to a uniform shade of sepia. You step carefully across the wooden boards, their sound a soft, hollow echo beneath your feet. Every object here feels like a sentence left unfinished, a letter never sent, a story paused in mid-breath. Your eyes are drawn to a trunk near the center of the room. Its surface is leather, cracked and dry, the brass clasps tarnished but still intact. You kneel beside it and run your fingers over the lid. The leather is cool, its texture uneven, ridged with the years. For a moment, you simply rest your palm there, feeling the quiet weight of all that remains hidden inside. When you finally lift the latch, it opens with a reluctant click. The lid rises slowly as though reluctant to give up its secrecy. Inside, layers of fabric lie folded, a shawl, once brightly colored but now dulled, its fringe tangled. A pair of gloves, their fingers bent as if still shaped around an absent hand. A child's wooden toy horse, the paint chipped but its form intact. Beneath them, bundles of letters tied with ribbon rest in neat stacks, their envelopes yellowed but their ink still dark enough to read. You take one in your hand and study it. The handwriting is graceful, looping, written in a style you rarely see anymore. The address is smudged, the stamp faded, but you can sense the intent, the care, the urgency of a message that once mattered deeply to someone. You do not open it. You only let its presence settle into you, like a whisper from across time. The air in the attic shifts as you linger, a faint stirring that might be nothing more than your breath mingling with dust, but you feel it as something larger, the room itself exhaling, acknowledging your presence, allowing you to share its long silence. You rise and move further in. Each step reveals more fragments of forgotten lives. A cracked mirror leaning against a beam, its surface clouded but still catching the faint outline of your form. A stack of newspapers bound with twine, their headlines visible in patches, speaking of wars, of coronations, of winters long past. A small leather-bound book, its cover blank, its pages filled with penciled sketches of trains, stations, and faces. The sketches are not professional, but they are precise enough to carry emotion. A glance captured, a gesture remembered. The attic is not heavy with sorrow. It is gentle, patient, carrying these remnants the way the earth carries fallen leaves, not discarding them, not pressing them forward, simply holding them in quiet continuity. You pause near the window and look out. The fog outside presses against the glass, its glow diffused into a soft halo. For a moment you cannot tell whether the fog is outside looking in, or inside looking out. You sit on a wooden chest by the window, the surface firm beneath you, and rest your hands on your lap. The room's silence folds around you like a cloak, its weight not oppressive but protective. You notice how your breathing slows again, how even your thoughts seem to take on the rhythm of dust motes drifting through beams of light. In the stillness, you realize the attic is not simply a storehouse of forgotten things. It is a waiting room of its own kind, a place where memories pause, neither erased nor demanding, simply suspended until they are ready to be seen again. The thought comforts you. You do not need to carry every story, every object, every fragment. They are here, waiting, preserved in their own time, released from urgency. And perhaps, in the same way, the parts of yourself you thought were lost or left behind are also stored somewhere, safe, waiting to be remembered when you are ready. You close your eyes and let the idea settle. The attic breathes with you. The beams creak softly, the dust shifts, the window holds the fog in its circle of glass. You could stay here for a long time, and perhaps you already have. When you finally rise, you close the trunk, gently, smoothing your hand once more across the leather lid. You replace the latch with care, leaving the contents just as you found them, as if promising to return. The stairs wait patiently as you step back toward the door. The latch clicks softly into place behind you, the attic returning to its long vigil. As you descend, the air grows warmer again, touched by the faint hum of the station below. You feel changed, though nothing visible has shifted, as though you carry with you not the weight of forgotten things, but their permission to let time hold them until needed. Back in the corridor, you pause at the bottom of the stairs. The station's rhythms reach you once more. The steady tick of the clock, the distant roll of a cartwheel, the soft murmur of a door opening and closing. And beneath it all, the presence of the attic lingers, a reminder that above you, tucked beneath the roof, time itself is waiting, holding, breathing. You walk on, quieter than before, the dust of memory still clinging gently to your shoulders, the stillness of the attic folded into your breath. Chapter 17. The Station Cafe. The corridor widens as you follow it, the lamps giving way to a glow that feels different. Not the solemn, patient light of attics and stairwells, but something warmer, more alive. You know even before the scent reaches you where you are heading. There is a softness in the air, touched with the faint perfume of tea leaves, the sweetness of bread baked earlier that morning, and the deeper undertone of wood polished daily by hands that care. A frosted glass door stands at the end of the corridor, etched with letters so faint with age they are more suggestion than sign. Refreshments. The word feels quaint, of another era, but you find comfort in its simplicity. You push the door open and step inside. The cafe is small but welcoming, its walls lined with wooden paneling that glows in the lamplight. A long counter stretches along one side, its surface polished smooth. Behind it, shelves hold neat rows of cups and saucers, each stacked with care. A tall urn rests at one end, its spout gleaming, releasing the faint hiss of steam at intervals like a quiet sigh. The room is warmer than the corridors and waiting rooms. The air carries the gentle hum of life, the sound of cutlery set softly on china, the faint shuffle of chairs against wood, the murmur of voices too low to distinguish but comforting in their rhythm. You take in the room slowly, letting your eyes wander. A pair of travelers sit at a table near the window, their coats draped over the backs of their chairs. Between them rests a teapot, its lid tilted slightly, steam curling upward in ribbons that catch the lamplight. They speak little, yet their presence together is companionable, each sip of tea a punctuation to their silence. In the far corner, an elderly woman sits alone, her hands folded neatly on the table in front of her. A cup rests untouched by her elbow, the tea long cooled, but her gaze is soft and distant, as though she sees beyond the fog pressing gently against the window pane. Her stillness is not heavy. It feels instead like part of the room itself, like the way a clock belongs to the air around it. Near the stove at the back, a boy no older than 12 polishes a tray with a cloth, his movements patient and precise. From time to time he glances toward the urn as though listening for its hiss, then continues with his work, absorbed in the steady rhythm of his task. You move quietly to a table near the center of the room. The chair accepts your weight with a soft creak, and when you place your hands on the table, the wood feels faintly warm, as though the sun might once have touched it and left its memory behind. A woman in a simple apron approaches. Her steps are quiet, her presence calm. She doesn't ask what you'd like. She only sets a cup before you, followed by a small plate with a slice of bread still warm, its crust golden, its surface brushed with the faintest sheen of butter. The tea carries the scent of bergamot, its steam rising to meet you like a greeting. You wrap your hands around the cup. The warmth seeps into your skin, and for a long moment you do nothing but hold it, letting the sensation settle into you, letting the simple presence of heat and fragrance remind you that this too is enough. When you sip, the taste is soft and full, not urgent. The tea seems to spread gently through your body, leaving behind a sense of steadiness, of quiet clarity. You take another bite of the bread, its crust yielding, its softness within carrying the sweetness of grain. Every motion slows you further, each swallow weaving you more deeply into the fabric of this place. The cafe hums around you. A chair shifts softly against the floorboards. The urn hisses again. A spoon stirs against porcelain, ringing faintly before falling silent. None of it demands your attention, yet all of it belongs to you, as if you are both guest and keeper of this moment. Your gaze drifts toward the window. The fog still presses close, but the lamplight inside the cafe makes it glow softly, like a wall of pearl. You see only the faintest shadow of movement beyond. Perhaps a figure passing. Perhaps only the fog itself, reshaping its edges. Either way, it reminds you that the world continues outside, even as you are held safe within. As you sip again, you think of the attic above, with its quiet guardianship of memory. You think of the platform stretching into fog, the hum that lingers in the rails. And you realize that the cafe is another kind of keeper, not of forgotten things, but of the present itself, preserved in the rhythm of cups, bread, chairs, and lamps. A bell rings faintly in the distance, carried through the walls. It is not sharp, not urgent, only a gentle reminder that trains come and go, that time moves, that journeys continue. No one in the cafe stirs at the sound. The woman in the corner remains still. The travelers sip their tea. The boy polishes his tray. The bell belongs as much to the room's stillness as to the rails beyond. You close your eyes for a moment and lean back slightly in your chair. The warmth of the tea rests in your chest. The soft hum of voices lulls you into a slower breath. You realize you could remain here for hours and never feel the need to measure them. The cafe bends time around itself, turning minutes into something broader, gentler, almost shapeless. When you open your eyes again, the bread is nearly gone, the tea cooling in its cup. You rest your hands lightly on the table once more, feeling the faint texture of the wood beneath your fingertips. You let your gaze travel across the room, touching on each figure, each detail, each sound, as if to take them with you when you leave. You stand when you are ready, your chair sliding back with a soft sigh. The woman in the apron meets your eyes briefly, her expression calm and knowing. She says nothing, but her silence feels like a blessing. As you step out of the cafe, the corridor greets you once more, its air cooler, its sounds fainter. The door closes gently behind you, and for a moment you linger, letting the memory of tea, bread, and lamplight settle deeper into you. The station hums with its quiet constancy. Somewhere above, the attic waits. Somewhere outside, the platform stretches into fog. And here in the heart of it, the cafe continues, a warm pocket of time holding its place between arrivals and departures. You move slowly down the corridor, your steps unhurried, your breath steady. The final chapter of the morning waits just beyond, not demanding, but inevitable, like the slow turning of a page. Chapter 18. The Departure. The corridor narrows again as you walk, the hush of the cafe fading behind you like a memory closing its door. The air is cooler here, touched with the faint dampness of the fog pressing against the walls. You pause at a window before stepping further, and through its glass you glimpse the faint glow of lamps on the platform. They hover like islands, their light soft and fragile against the thickening grey. You follow the sound of your own steps, the steady rhythm of soles against worn boards. Each echo feels softer than the last, as though the station itself is lowering its voice in anticipation. A bell rings once, low, round, certain. Its note travels into the fog like a stone settling into deep water. When you step through the waiting room again, you see the man who had been sitting by the stove now standing near the doorway, coat buttoned, collar raised. His cup and saucer are gone, as though they never belonged to the table at all. His face is calm, his movements unhurried. He looks at the clock, then toward the platform, then lowers his gaze once more. The quietness of his manner seems to weave itself into the air. The clock ticks steadily above you, its hands edging forward without demand. You find yourself pausing beneath it, your eyes following the slow arc of the second hand. Each sweep feels like an opening and a closing, an invitation to breathe a little deeper, to soften a little more. Then the sound reaches you, distant at first, then clearer. A low vibration along the rails, rising like a hum in the bones of the platform. The train is coming. You know it without needing to see. The sound expands, not rushing but arriving, each moment carrying it closer, each breath deepening its presence. You step out once more onto the boards. The fog receives you like a companion, brushing lightly against your face, your hands. The lanterns shine in their small golden orbs, haloed by the damp. The hum in the rails grows fuller now, joined by a faint rhythm like a heartbeat beneath the earth. Down the line, the glow of a lamp appears in the fog, then another, brighter, nearer. The shape of the engine emerges slowly, its bulk softened by the white air, its light cutting a path that glimmers on the wet steel. The sound is not sharp or heavy. It is steady, immense, like the turning of something inevitable. The train rolls into view, its wheels whispering against the rails, its motion both powerful and unhurried. Steam curls upward, blending into the fog until you cannot tell where one ends and the other begins. The platform trembles gently under its weight, yet you feel no urgency, only the deep rhythm of arrival, the way the world seems to exhale as it comes to rest. Doors open with quiet clinks. Figures emerge from the mist. A porter with a lantern, a woman gathering her shawl, a boy carrying a parcel. They move with the calm certainty of people who belong to this moment, who have always belonged. Some step down from the train, their shoes tapping softly against the damp boards. Others climb aboard, their hands brushing polished metal, their bodies leaning into the warmth of the carriages. The man from the waiting room steps past you then. His coat sways slightly with his motion, his shoes striking the wood with measured calm. He carries no luggage, no bundle, only himself. When he reaches the carriage door, he pauses briefly, as though listening to the fog, then ascends the steps and disappears within. The woman from the cafe's corner passes next, her gaze still soft and distant. She doesn't look at you, but her presence brushes against yours like a shadow, moving beside a flame. Her coat folds gently around her as she boards, and then she is gone. The train hums patiently, its breath rising in faint bursts of steam. You watch the figures move, some leaving, some arriving, all part of the quiet exchange that stations know so well. Time seems to blur around you. Each step, each motion, feels like both an ending and a beginning, indistinguishable from one another. At last, the bell rings again, a single deep note that settles into the boards beneath your feet. Doors close with soft finality, voices fade, footsteps withdraw. The platform stills. The engine exhales once more, louder this time, a sound like breath gathered before a song. Slowly, almost tenderly, the train begins to move. The wheels turn, the carriages sway, the rails sing with their contact. The glow of lamps slides past you, shrinking back into the fog. One by one, the carriages slip away, their windows catching fragments of light before dissolving into grey. You watch until only the last carriage remains, its tail lamp a small red star trembling in the mist. Then even that soft glow fades, swallowed by the morning. The hum in the rails lingers a little longer, then quiets, leaving only silence. You stand on the platform, alone now, the fog pressing close again as if to fold the absence into itself. The boards beneath you are damp and still. The lanterns glow, their halos steady in the softened air. The silence is not empty, it is full, layered, whole. You turn slightly, letting your gaze rest on the waiting room door, the windows glowing faintly with lamplight within. The clock ticks on. Somewhere, perhaps in the attic, the old trunks and chairs keep their vigil. In the cafe, the urn may still sigh, the bread may still cool on its tray. The station remains timeless and sure, even as the train has gone. You close your eyes. You feel the cool air on your face, the faint dampness on your hands, the slow rhythm of your own breath. You feel the boards beneath your feet, the weight of your body settling into the present. You feel the silence, vast and tender, wrapping around you. And in that silence you understand. You do not need to follow the train, nor to linger here forever. You have been part of the story already, in your steps, your breath, your gaze. The station has written you into itself, and that is enough. When you open your eyes again, the fog seems softer, almost luminous. The lamps shine gently. The rails stretch forward, disappearing into the mist like lines of a story still being written. You stand within it all, not separate but belonging, steady as the clock, quiet as the boards, whole as the morning itself. The page has turned, the story is complete, and you are here, held in the stillness as the station breathes on.